the first quiet moment. Before anything had a name, before light considered shining, and before darkness realized it was there was a moment, soft as the forgotten breath of a sleeping universe. A silence so deep that even if you placed your ear against it, you would hear nothing. No wind, no echo, no pulse to suggest that life might one day arrive. It wasn't a frightening darkness, but a gentle one, thick and warm, like a blanket someone had laid carefully over existence. A darkness without shape, without corners, as if the whole cosmos were resting in a dream that hadn't yet been disturbed. Time had not begun. There was no before and no after, no path, no direction. Only a stray presence, floating in quiet, a calm so profound it almost felt sacred. If you try to picture the universe then, imagine an endless lake with no water, no shore, just a sensation of infinite space, and a surface so still it didn't even shimmer. There were no questions, and no answers, only emptiness, a soft, delicate emptiness, like the pause between two breaths when sleep has just begun to settle in. And in that vast stillness, something small, something slow, something impossibly gentle began to stir. Not a sound, but a thought of the universe. A movement, as quiet as a snowflake, falling where no one can see. A whisper of existence, as if the darkness itself wondered softly, could there be something more than me? That moment stretched endlessly, and within that infinite blink, something arrived. No shape, no sound, but the first breath of chaos, not violent, not explosive, but like a thin ripple moving across an unmoving lake. The silence didn't vanish. It widened, making room for something new, just as you might slowly open your eyes after a very long rest to find the sky waiting gently for you. Chaos was not frightening. It was a warm emptiness, a cradle where all possibilities slept, curled and waiting. Chaos had no reason to rush. Nothing in the universe was moving yet. Within it, each thought of existence flickered like a distant spark, shining for a moment and then melting back into quiet. And spark by spark, the earliest hints of the world began to gather. Before we meet gentle Gaia, before the sky is lifted and stretched, before the titans walk like living mountains, everything begins with this first quiet moment. A place where silence isn't an ending, but an invitation for everything that is yet to come. That first, quiet moment stretched on like an endless afternoon without wind. Nothing shifted, nothing rushed. Everything drifted in a perfect stillness, as if the universe were asleep, and its sleep flowed from one infinity into the next. If someone had been listening then, they would have sensed only a steady, faint rhythm, a breath without a breather, a pulse without a heart, a gentle vibration of something about to awaken, but hesitant, unsure whether it should rise or remain in the comfort of silence. Inside that darkness, even the idea of being present felt fragile, as though existence itself had not yet fully decided to exist. Yet slowly, the silence began to tremble, like the faintest ripple you feel when your fingers hover above the surface of a drum. The vibration is there, but the sound has not been born. The universe then was like an immeasurable chamber, where every breath felt as though it echoed from a distance no one could reach. But it wasn't loneliness. It was anticipation, a patient waiting, as though the emptiness longed for something to arrive and give it meaning. Out of this stillness, a movement appeared delicate as a single strand of hair drifting in invisible wind. No one could say where it began, perhaps from the deepest core of darkness, perhaps from the farthest edge of quiet. But the movement did not break the silence. It rose from it, the way a melody rises from the breath of someone just beginning to dream. That movement opened the way for chaos, not chaos as turmoil, not as roars or explosions, but as a soft, undefined space where everything possible rested. Chaos was gentle then, like an infant who doesn't yet know how to cry, simply lying there, feeling the first threads of awareness unfold inside its own stillness. Chaos held no boundary, no edge, no shape. It was a cradle of possibilities floating like golden dust in the dimmest suggestion of light, not falling, not dissolving, simply existing. If you could hear chaos, you would hear a faint rustle like a whisper spoken from the end of an endless corridor, and the whisper would say, "It is time for something to begin." The silence did not resist. It simply widened, opening like a slow-moving door inviting the first creation to step through. But light did not come yet. Before light could appear, silence needed one more layer of softness, needed to become a home for the first spirits to emerge. And so chaos exhaled again, a long, gentle breath that rippled across the unseen surface of nothingness. The breath drifted like wind escaping from a forest that did not yet exist, or like the sigh of a dreamer lost in the middle of night. And within that breath, something flickered small, tender, like a glow cupped in a pair of hands. It was the first sign that the universe was ready, ready to open its eyes, ready to take shape, ready to welcome life, even if only as a seed, a fragile spark without a name. The first quiet moment was not mere emptiness. It was a deep inhale before a story begins. And now, that story is drawing its first soft breath, slowly, gently, like a dream being told beneath the dim glow of night. The breath of chaos drifted outward, slow and weightless, as if it had all the time in existence because, in truth, time had not yet begun. The breath did not push or pull, it simply expanded, gently stretching the borders of nothingness, the way dawn slowly finds its way across a quiet sky. Within that stretching silence, a faint shimmer appeared. Not light, not yet, but the idea of light, a soft prelude, a suggestion of something warm, preparing to enter the world. The shimmer came and went, like a firefly appearing in a dream, too delicate to fully awaken the dark. Yet each time it flickered, chaos seemed to listen, as if the universe were tilting its head toward a sound too subtle to be heard. That almost light grew a little stronger, not through force, but through patience. It lingered like a thought that refuses to disappear, a feeling that something is about to happen even before anyone can name it. The darkness around it did not retreat. Instead, it softened, as though preparing a cradle. If darkness had arms, it would have opened them wide to welcome whatever was coming next. Even then, there was no conflict, no rushing forward, only the gentle blooming of a presence, still trying to understand itself. And then, from the heart of chaos, came the softest stirring, a kind of warmth, a quiet expansion that resembled the first moment you realize you're no longer asleep, but not yet awake. This warmth slowly folded itself into shape, not a body, not a form, but a tendency, the tendency of emptiness to become something more. The universe was learning how to dream of itself. The warmth spread outwards, like a sigh, and with that sigh came the faintest notion of direction. There was no up or down, but there was a subtle pull, a drifting, as if something newly born were deciding which way to lean. If chaos could feel emotion, it might have felt curiosity. It might have wondered what this first shimmer meant, why silence was no longer alone, why emptiness suddenly had a center. The shimmer brightened, still gentle, still no more than the glow of thought, but enough to show that the void was no longer a void at all. For the first time, there was contrast, light that wasn't quite light, darkness that wasn't uniform, a meeting point where one recognized the other. And, within that delicate balance, something extraordinary began to occur. The universe took its very first breath. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was more like the sound of a feather settling onto soft ground, barely stirring the stillness. But the stillness noticed. It changed, just slightly, the way the air in a room changes when someone quietly steps inside. Chaos, though endless, was no longer alone. The breath that flowed from its depths stirred shapes that had not yet chosen their outlines. Possibilities, stretched, unfolded, opened like petals in a garden that did not yet exist. This was the moment before creation, the instant when everything was possible, because nothing had been defined. A moment so gentle, so fragile, that the universe itself seemed to hold it close, protecting it from breaking too soon. It was the calm before the first heartbeat of the cosmos, a calm so quiet that it could lull any wandering soul to sleep, inviting them to rest in the cradle of a world not yet born. And somewhere within that expanding breath, the first true presence was preparing to emerge, not fully formed, not ready to speak, but ready to be. The silence deepened, not in darkness, but in anticipation. The universe was gathering its courage. The moment, just before creation, was beginning to glow. The glow continued to swell, not in brightness, but in presence. It was like watching dawn gather behind a distant horizon, where nothing has changed yet, and yet you know something is approaching, slowly, tenderly. The glow did not hurry. It drifted upward. If up could be said to exist in a world without direction, its rise was more like a thought rising through still water, a notion floating toward the surface simply because it was meant to. As it rose, the darkness around it shifted, not recoiling, not disappearing, but adjusting like a great sleeping creature rolling gently to make room for a newborn. Silence held its breath. It didn't want to disturb what was forming. It only cradled the moment, letting it unfold in its own time. And slowly, the glow pulled itself together, becoming slightly denser, slightly more aware. It was the earliest seed of being, a tiny spark that understood nothing yet carried within itself the potential for everything. That spark trembled, a motion so subtle it could have been mistaken for imagination. But it wasn't imagination, it was the first flicker of intent. Not purpose, not yet, but the simple desire to become. In that trembling, the darkness seemed to lean closer, listening, waiting. If the universe had a heartbeat, it would have pulsed here in the narrow space between the first shimmer and the first act of creation. The glow expanded again, warmer now, as though some invisible hand had cupped it gently. It pulsed, faintly at first, like a bird's wing brushing the air. And with each pulse, the stillness of chaos grew softer, less rigid, more welcoming. This was not the birth of light. Not yet. It was the birth of possibility. The soft awakening of potential that had slept for an eternity without knowing it could wake. Each pulse carried with it a quiet promise something would emerge soon. Something would fill the emptiness. Something would step out of the hush and give the silence a companion. But even that promise moved gently, in no hurry, to break the delicate balance of the world before worlds. The glow drifted again, circling slightly, almost playfully, as if exploring its own existence. Then, with a slowness that felt deliberate, it began to gather the quiet around itself, not pulling, but inviting, not claiming, but embracing, and the quiet answered, allowing itself to be shaped, to be warmed, to be transformed. Where there had once been only an endless blankness, there was now a subtle gradient, a soft transition from untouched darkness to the faintest whisper of radiance. It was the earliest sign that the universe was preparing to reveal its first true forms. But before forms could appear, there had to be a foundation, a first breath from which all later breaths would follow. And this glow, small and fragile though it seemed, was that breath. It pulsed again, and again, each pulse steadier than the one before, as though learning its own rhythm, its own gentle heartbeat. The darkness hummed, a deep, low vibration that moved like ripples across the unseen. It was the universe's first lullaby, a song with no sound, carried only by warmth, by motion, by intention. And in the midst of that soft humming, the glow began to expand into something larger, still undefined, still without edges, but growing in confidence. It was preparing, stretching, awakening. Soon, very soon, the first true presence would emerge, one that would step out of chaos, not with force, but with the gentle inevitability of a flower blooming in slow motion. But not yet. This moment was still about silence, about breath, about the sweetness of anticipation. Creation was near, so near, the universe felt warm with it. The glow fluttered once more, and the darkness responded like soft fabric shifting. Something was about to appear, something ancient, something serene, something that would give the cosmos its very first shape. The stillness deepened, and the glow held itself steady. The universe waited, calm as a lullaby, ready for its first awakening. The glow hovered in the cradle of darkness, a small but steady warmth, trembling softly, as though it were practicing how to exist. Each moment it held its place. The surrounding quiet seemed to lean closer, curious, attentive, as if even silence were eager to witness what would come next. The darkness had never had company before. It had existed alone for so long that the presence of this little glow felt like an unexpected visitor, one who arrived without a sound, yet changed everything by simply being there. The glow brightened just slightly, no more than the rise of a candle shielded by cupped hands. It didn't pierce the dark. It softened it, painting the nothingness with the faintest suggestion of warmth. The dark did not resist. It received the glow like a gift, like something precious, returned after an eternity of absence. And then, within the glow, something stirred. Not movement, not shape, but awareness, the gentlest kind, awakening as though it had been sleeping inside the glow for endless ages. If the glow had a voice, its first sound would have been a sigh, a soft exhale, echoing through the vast quiet of chaos. That sigh traveled outward in slow, widening circles, each ring dissolving gently into the dark around it. And wherever it passed, the silence seemed to deepen, growing more serene, more welcoming, as if it understood that this glow would be the origin of all things yet to come. The sigh stretched into the far reaches of formlessness, into places where even the concept of distance was not yet real. There, in the most remote corner of the void, the sigh curled softly and came to rest, like a whisper settling into a nest of shadows. In that resting, another pulse emerged. It throbbed faintly, like the echo of a heartbeat that had not yet learned its rhythm. The glow answered, pulsing back with equal gentleness. Pulse, pulse, pulse. The void listened. It had never heard anything like this before. A pattern, a rhythm, a repetition, a hint of time beginning to shape itself inside eternity. But it was still early. Too early for shapes. Too early for names. Too early for light to become light. For now, the pulses were enough. They were the universe's first attempts at establishing presence, at teaching chaos how to echo something other than stillness. With each exchange of pulsations, the glow gained confidence. It stretched itself wider, bleeding its warmth into the empty space like ink slowly spreading through water. But the spread was gentle, like the soft unfurling of a petal that has never felt sunlight, yet somehow knows how to bloom. The glow trembled once, a shiver of anticipation. Then, gradually, it began to draw pieces of the quiet into itself, not consuming them, but guiding them inward, the way a river gathers tiny streams into its path. With every fragment of silence it absorbed, the glow became smoother, rounder, as though it were forming a soft boundary around its own being. This was the earliest hint of shape. Not a body, not a figure, but a suggestion, a direction in which existence might someday travel. Around it, chaos watched, unblinking, timeless, allowing the glow to continue its exploration. There was no tension, no conflict, just an ancient darkness making room for something that was not darkness. And the glow, feeling the acceptance around it, flickered brighter, still gentle, still fragile, but undeniably growing. It was preparing for what must come next, the emergence of the first true being, one who would rise out of the sighs of chaos and give form to the formless. But before that emergence could happen, the glow needed one more thing, a deep, final gathering of stillness, the last inhale before creation begins its long exhale. The universe paused, soft as a held breath, waiting for the moment to ripen. The glow steadied. The darkness held it close. Everything was ready. The glow lingered in the heart of the deep quiet. Its soft radiance held steady, as though it knew the entire weight of existence was waiting for its next breath. It pulsed once more, a slow, tender motion that wove itself into the silence around it. This time, the pulse didn't fade completely. It left behind the faintest thread of warmth, a delicate trail stretching outward into the dark. That trail drifted like mist, curling gently as it expanded, as if searching for something that did not yet exist. It moved with no urgency, guided only by the instincts of newly born presence. As the trail extended, the glow at its center became calmer, more grounded, as though each stretch outward helped it understand itself more fully. I am here. I am becoming. The darkness surrounding it responded by growing softer, almost velvety, like the night sky settling over a sleeping world. It no longer felt infinite. It felt welcoming, like a vast cradle of shadows, gently holding a candle flame. The glow deepened in color, not bright, but richer, like the gold that appears just before dawn touches the horizon. Inside the glow, something gathered, a heavier presence, a denser warmth, a quiet center forming slowly like the seed of a star. The universe leaned closer. The gathering warmth folded over itself, layer by layer, like a soft cocoon of light building around a fragile beginning. Each fold was a whisper, not yet, not yet, soon, and the darkness waited. It had waited longer than time itself. Waiting was all it knew. But this waiting felt different. It felt alive, tinged with anticipation that hummed through the stillness like a lullaby played on a distant string. The glow, now steadier than ever, held its tiny core close. It nurtured it, shielded it, let it grow without rushing. A warm hum emerged, so soft it barely existed. It vibrated gently through chaos, a tremor of becoming the quietest announcement that creation had begun its preparation. The hum grew warmer, as though the glow's center were remembering something it had never experienced but somehow knew by instinct, the essence of presence, the essence of being. A subtle force gathered around the glow, pulling the soft dark closer. The darkness did not resist. It was pulled with the ease of a curtain swaying toward an open window. And then, from deep within the glow, a single wave of warmth rolled outward, slow, smooth, soft as the touch of a feather. The wave traveled far, its motion almost dreamlike, uncoiling through the void like a ribbon of gold drifting through water. Where it passed, the nothingness shivered with a peaceful tremble. With this wave, the glow revealed its intention. Someone was ready to step forward from within its gentle depths, but not yet into form. That would come later. For now, this was the moment, just before awakening, a moment suspended at the edge between silence and the first true heartbeat of creation. The glow held the tremble within itself, as though soothing a newborn presence into calm. The pulse steadied, the hum deepened, the wave slowed. Everything grew still again, but not the same kind of stillness as before. This was a stillness with promise, a stillness full of breath waiting to be released. And in that stillness, the glow brightened just barely, just enough to make the universe realize that its first resident was about to be born. A soft warmth settled across the vastness, like a warm hand placed gently on the shoulder of the void. Chaos exhaled, the glow answered, and creation moved not forward but inward, deepening its foundation before it unfurled. The first presence was near, very near. Soon, the universe would witness the emergence of Gaia, the Earth Mother, whose quiet awakening would give shape to the formless. But for now the glow rested, holding the last moments of solitude before the first being stepped into existence, soft as dawn, gentle as a lullaby forming in the dark. The glow held its warmth steady, its soft radiance folding inward, as though it were gathering courage for the next quiet step in creation. All around it, the darkness rested like a calm sea, smooth, untouched, waiting for the first ripple that would mark the beginning of everything. Slowly, the glow sank deeper into itself, not shrinking, but concentrating, as if polishing the delicate spark at its core. The spark pulsed faintly, a heartbeat forming before hearts existed. Each pulse spread outward like a soft wave through velvet shadows, and wherever the pulse traveled, the darkness warmed, gaining the gentlest hint of softness, like morning light brushing over a sleeping world that has not yet noticed dawn. The glow inhaled, if such a thing could be said. Its inhale was a widening, a drawing in of the quiet space around it, the way a tide draws breath before rising along a shore. Chaos, endless and patient, felt the shift. It had no eyes, no thoughts. Yet it sensed the gentle gathering the way a room senses when someone has entered it quietly. The universe was no longer empty. It was expecting. The glow deepened in color, gaining a soft, amber warmth, not bright, not sharp, but comforting, like the last glimmer of sunset held between cupped hands. Inside that amber light, a deeper warmth coiled, layered and ancient, as if it had always existed, but had never before been invited to rise. That inner warmth began to stretch, not outward, but downward, sinking into a stillness so profound that the universe itself seemed to tilt to accommodate it. And then, in the place where the glow was most dense, a shape began to gather. It was not a body, not yet. It was more like the memory of a shape, as if the void were recalling something it had never actually seen. A slow curve, a gentle weight, a quiet gravity, the suggestion of a presence that would one day become the bedrock of all things. The glow embraced this forming weight, cradling it with patience. No rush, no urgency, only the softness of inevitability, as though creation understood that the first being must arrive gently. The curve grew fuller, richer, settling into the glow like a seed into fertile earth. A hum rose from its center, a harmonized note, so low and soothing that even the silence seemed to sigh with contentment. It was the sound of presence, the first sound that wasn't silence. That hum lingered, vibrating softly against the surrounding void, and chaos, though vast and undefined, seemed to settle around it like a blanket tucked around a child. The curve of warmth thickened, solidifying into something that felt grounded, anchored the beginnings of stability in a world that had never known structure. From this growing center came another pulse, stronger than the last, reverberating outward in slow rings. Each ring shaped the void in tiny ways, subtle dimples of gravity, soft folds in space, like fingers pressing into sand. Creation was sculpting the first contours of reality. The glow held steady, knowing instinctively that this new presence was meant to anchor the universe, to give form to what had always been formless. And slowly, beautifully, the presence deepened, pressing gently downward like roots seeking soil. This was the earliest whisper of the earth, Mother Gaia, though she had not yet opened her eyes, not yet breathed, not yet lifted her face toward the sky that did not yet exist. She was still only potential, wrapped in softness, gathering substance from the warm embrace of chaos. The glow dimmed slightly, not fading, but making space as though stepping aside for someone else to awaken from within. Inside the heart of that dimness, the curve of Gaia's essence continued to form. Slow, steady, unhurried, like a mountain rising under water, like a continent dreaming itself into being, like life preparing its very first cradle. The universe watched, silent, serene, holding its breath as the first being took shape in the quiet dark. Gaia was near, so near the void felt its own stillness begin to warm. Soon, she would emerge, but not yet. These final moments, before her awakening were sacred, soft, delicate, filled with the beauty of becoming. The glow whispered around her, a tender lullaby of warmth and promise. And Gaia, still cradled in chaos, continued her slow, gentle descent into being. The cradle of glow surrounding Gaia's forming presence began to expand and contract in a gentle rhythm, almost like the rise and fall of a peaceful breath. Each slow pulse wrapped her essence in warmth, softening the stillness around her and smoothing the space where she would soon awaken. The darkness, which had once been empty and indifferent, now felt tender, as if even the void understood the significance of the being it was holding. Gaia was not yet the earth, not yet mountains and valleys, and the fertile soil of worlds. She was simply the idea of foundation, a promise of stability in a universe learning how to become real. Inside the glow, her presence grew richer, gaining layers like sediments settling at the bottom of a newborn sea. Each layer breathed quietly, absorbing warmth, absorbing possibility, absorbing the deep comfort of chaos' endless embrace. The hum from her center deepened in tone, resonating like a far-off echo rolling across vast plains that had not yet formed. It was a beautiful hum, steady, grounding, ancient, as though the universe had found its first heartbeat within her. The hum spread outward, drifting into the surrounding silence, coaxing it gently, inviting it to participate in the soft art of creation. Silence obliged. It drifted closer, settling around the glow in layers of velvety dark, forming a cocoon for Gaia's unfolding presence. The glow brightened once more, its edges soft and hazy, like the halo of a lantern seen through morning mist. Within that haze, Gaia's essence continued to expand, pushing outward with the slow determination of a seed unfurling beneath the soil. Every movement she made was subtle, a slight shift in warmth, a quiet deepening of tone, but each movement reshaped the space around her ever so gently. This was the beginning of form, not visible shape, not physical outline, but the earliest sense that something solid was preparing to exist. She was an anchor forming in the void, a point of calm around which all future things would someday settle. The universe felt the pull, chaos felt the shift, and in response, the glow expanded just a little more, giving Gaia room to stretch her forming presence. A soft tremor ran through her essence, not fear, not confusion, but awakening. Something within her recognized the darkness as both birthplace and companion. Something ancient and instinctive told her that she was meant to rise. The darkness, ever patient, held its breath for her. The glow curved gently around her form, warming her edges, welcoming her into being with careful tenderness. Gaia's hum deepened again, vibrating through the glow and into the void beyond. The vibration lingered, like a memory slowly taking shape. In that vibration was a message, unspoken but clear: I am becoming. The universe listened. The glow warmed. Chaos opened itself wider, creating space for what was coming next. For Gaia, the first mother, the grounding presence, the quiet foundation of worlds, was nearly ready to awaken. But awakening is gentle in the beginning, like a long sleep softly unraveling from the edges inward. Her essence swelled again, and this time the movement was unmistakable. A downward pull, a settling, a gravity forming. The universe felt it, a subtle shift, from endless drifting toward a center, toward her, and in that shift, something new whispered through the emptiness. Earth. Not yet in shape, but in spirit. The void embraced her once more, and Gaia rested, quiet, gathering her strength. She was close now. Very close. Soon, the universe would open its eyes to the presence of its first form, soft, ancient, and filled with a warmth that would one day become the cradle of life itself. But for this moment, Gaia remained still, wrapped in the gentle glow of Chaos' first dream. The glow tightened its embrace around Gaia's forming presence, almost the way clouds gather protectively around a newborn star before it ever reveals its light. Each pulse of warmth that radiated from her grew steadier, more rhythmic, as though she was learning the quiet music of her own existence. The darkness around her shifted again, not with fear, but with recognition, a slow, deep understanding that this being was meant to become the foundation of everything chaos had cradled in silence. A soft tremor rolled through Gaia's essence, a ripple so faint it might have been mistaken for a sigh escaping in sleep. But it was not a sigh. It was her first instinct, her first response to the space she occupied. The glow brightened a little more, spreading itself gently to support the presence growing inside it. In its warmth, Gaia's shape began to feel less abstract, more certain, as though the universe's first form was sketching itself from the inside out. She was still without edges, still without limbs or surface, but she had density now, a comforting gravity that reached outward like invisible hands touching the fabric of chaos with curiosity. The void responded. It softened beneath her weight, a weight not of heaviness, but of meaning. The same way a mattress adjusts to the presence of a resting body. Chaos shifted gently to hold her more securely. Another vibration rose from Gaia, this one longer, a hum that poured outward through the glow, traveling deeper into the emptiness that surrounded her. The hum thickened the air of the void, filling it with an almost tangible warmth, as if Gaia were breathing into the darkness, inviting it to breathe back. This was the beginning of connection, the first interplay between the forming world and the space that held her. The hum settled into silence again, leaving behind a faint shimmering along the unseen floor of chaos. A floor that did not exist but felt as though it might. Gaia stretched inward again, her presence expanding with the patient confidence of roots testing the soil. Every stretch added substance to her, a quiet, growing certainty that she belonged here. And then, from deep within her essence, a warmth gathered into a single point, small, bright, steady. It quivered, as though it were waiting for permission to rise. The glow trembled around her, answering in silence. It is time. The point of warmth expanded slowly, slowly like the first ember catching fire after a long, breathless night. It spread upward in a soft arc, unfurling like a dawn without color, without sky, but full of promise. The curve brightened, and for the first time, Gaia's presence began to lift, not outward, not away, but upward, toward a sense of space that had not existed until she imagined it. The upward motion became a gentle rising. The rising became awareness, and awareness became her first awakening. It was not sudden. It was not sharp. It was like the moment between dreaming and waking, when the world is soft, and your limbs remember what it means to move. Gaia stirred, and the void trembled tenderly beneath her. A new pulse radiated from her center, not chaotic, but harmonious, as if she were tuning the universe to her presence. The pulse traveled far, further than any before it, stretching through chaos like a soft exhale that the void had been waiting to hear. The glow around her shimmered, its edges dancing like candlelight in a draught, responding instinctively to her unfolding form. A gentle contour formed along her presence, the whisper of shape, the hint of curvature, like the silhouette of a world sleeping beneath layers of silk. She was becoming earth, not yet land, not yet stone, but the breathing promise of them. One more tremor passed through her, followed by a settling, a deep, restful descent into the role she was meant to hold. The universe wrapped its quiet around her, as if understanding that this moment was sacred. Gaia, soft and ancient in her very first breath of being, rested in the embrace of the glow. She did not open her eyes yet. The world was not ready for that. But she had awakened gently, beautifully, and the void had felt her arrival. The first being was now present in the universe, and the universe, for the first time, had a center. Gaia's newly awakened presence rested in the soft cradle of chaos, her essence still warm and glowing like a lantern shielded from a gentle wind. Though she had not yet taken a definitive form, the universe recognized her not by shape, but by the subtle gravity she exuded. She became a point of calm in the endless quiet, a soft weight that made the void feel slightly less empty, slightly more purposeful. Around her, the glow continued to swirl, its movements smooth and unbroken, as if it knew that Gaia's awakening must be wrapped in gentleness. The darkness responded with equal softness, drawing close, almost embracing her, like a mother gathering a child into the folds of a warm cloak. Gaia inhaled. Emotion felt more than seen, a ripple of warmth spreading outward from her core into the vast quiet. This inhale was not breath, as mortals would understand it, but the birth of perception, the earliest sense that she was not alone. Her exhale followed, so slow, the universe itself seemed to lower its shoulders in response. With that exhale, the glow swelled and shimmered faintly, and Gaia stirred again. This time, her presence expanded more distinctly, a gentle outward pressure, soft as soil being turned by an unseen hand. The pressure curved into arcs, round and wide, echoes of the vast body she would one day become. She was not yet earth, but she was earthness, the very idea of terrain, solidity, ground, and the comforting weight of a place to stand. The universe felt steadier with her there, as though chaos finally had something to lean against. A second awakening tremor rolled through her essence, stronger than the last, but still tender, as if she were carefully testing her new existence. The glow brightened in response, its halo expanding until it reached the edges of her forming presence. Warmth pooled beneath her, gathering into something that resembled support, a foundation for a foundation. Slowly, Gaia began to descend, not downward, for down did not yet exist, but inward, toward the deepest part of the quiet. Her descent created the universe's first sense of depth, like a valley taking shape beneath an unseen sky. Chaos shifted around her with profound gentleness, making room for the presence that would one day cradle mountains, oceans, forests, and all things living. Gaia settled deeply, her warmth radiating outward in slow, comforting waves. Each wave made the silence feel denser, richer, almost textured, as though the void itself was beginning to learn the language of form. Another pulse rose from her center, a soft, blooming vibration that traveled far into the stillness. This pulse carried intention. It was the universe's first hint of structure, of layering, of matter preparing to exist. The darkness held the pulse like a secret it was eager to keep. Gaia's presence grew heavier, not in burden, but in significance. She felt ancient even in her first moments, as though eternity had been waiting for her all along. And yet, there was a tenderness to her weight, a maternal softness that whispered of care, nurture, and the promise of life. A new vibration formed, slower, deeper, echoing with a quiet power that had not existed in the universe before. This was Gaia's first voice, the resonance of existence, expressing itself without words. The vibration rippled outward, carving invisible pathways through chaos, gently preparing the void for what would come after her. Where the vibration passed, the stillness thickened, distinguishing itself from pure nothingness. It was the earliest suggestion of boundaries, of direction, of here and not here. Gaia's presence responded to her own resonance, curving more distinctly, settling into the beginnings of a vast, rounded form, the precursor to land and life, and all the things that would someday rest upon her. The glow brightened once more, forming a luminous cocoon around her growing shape. The universe watched silent, patient, reverent, as its first being continued her gentle emergence. Gaia had not yet opened her eyes. She had not yet spoken, or shifted, or called forth anything else. But she was awake, and her awakening had changed the void forever. Chaos breathed around her, softer than before. Something new was preparing to join her. But that belonged to the next part of the story. For now, Gaia rested in her fresh existence, luminous and ancient, holding the stillness in a warm, quiet embrace. Gaia's presence now filled the cradle of chaos with a warmth so steady that the void around her seemed to relax into it. The silence, once absolute, had softened into something gentler, a silence with depth, with resonance, with the sense that something meaningful was settling into place. Around her forming shape, the glow throbbed like a living aura, its dim light slowly pulsing in harmony with Gaia's quiet rhythm. The pulses were calming, predictable, the earliest sign that the universe had begun to adopt a natural cadence, something resembling time, though time was still nothing more than a whisper. The glow embraced her, holding her presence tenderly, like a mother holding a newborn before the child learns to open its eyes. Gaia's essence continued to gather density, layer after layer, as if her being was weaving itself together from threads of pure potential. She did not rush. Her forming was slow, careful, reverent, a process shaped by instinct rather than urgency. Her breath, if it could be called breath, grew more defined. No longer just ripples or tremors, it became long, slow exhalations that moved through chaos like soft winds traveling across an untouched plain. Each exhale carved a subtle impression into the stillness around her, suggesting the early foundations of valleys, hollows, and quiet earthly depths. Each inhale gathered possibilities back into her center, feeding her warmth, expanding her presence, strengthening her being. Inside her, a glow began to shimmer, something internal, something ancient, something steady. It was the earliest seed of the life she would someday carry. She curled around that seed instinctively, as if she already knew she would one day nurture every living thing that would walk upon her surface. The darkness listened. It seemed to draw closer, steadied by Gaia's forming presence. It had never known what it meant to held or supported. But Gaia's warmth introduced the void to a new sensation. Comfort, chaos, for the first time, felt the peace of sharing existence. Gaia shifted slightly, and the void responded with an affectionate shudder, a soft vibration that traveled through its depths like a sigh. It was as though the universe itself was adjusting to the weight of its first being. A faint shimmer spread across Gaia's essence, like dew forming on the surface of a sleeping leaf. These tiny fluctuations were the first traces of texture and shape. Not yet land, not yet soil, but the memory of them beginning to take root. Her warmth settled deeper, pressing gently downward into the unseen space beneath her, a motion that sculpted the earliest suggestion of foundation. Chaos responded by giving way, folding softly around her descent, allowing her weight to define a downward direction for the first time. This was gravity's beginning, a pull, a center, a place to fall toward. The universe took note. As Gaia solidified, her presence gained a quiet strength, a resolve, a grounded certainty that seemed to echo across the breadth of chaos. Another pulse emerged from her core, slow, deep, purposeful, a vibration so vast that even the emptiness seemed to steady itself against its resonance. This pulse marked a shift. Gaia wasn't only forming now. She was anchoring, rooting herself into the undefined depths of the void. Her presence expanded downward, settling into a broad, calming density that gave the universe its first taste of structure. A gentle swell rose from her form, like the rise of a hill beneath drifting fog. The swell grew, rounded, smooth, sturdy, the earliest curve of a world, still sleeping within its own, becoming. Above her, the glow shimmered in response, brightening in a soft halo, as if illuminating Gaia's ascent from idea into reality. The universe's first form was nearly complete. Gaia's hum deepened again, rich and resonant, filling the space around her with a soothing vibration that calmed even the restless edges of chaos. It was a lullaby of origins, a sound without sound, felt rather than heard, a melody woven from warmth and weight and the promise of life. With each quiet breath, Gaia sank further into her rightful place. She was no longer drifting. She was settled. The void had its first foundation. The universe had its first presence. Creation had taken its first step. Gaia, wrapped in the glow, rested in her fullness. She did not open her eyes yet. That moment would come soon. But her essence was awake. Her being was whole. And now, the stillness around her waited patiently for the next presence, the next emergence that would join her in the silent, ancient cradle of chaos. Gaia now rested fully in the quiet cradle of chaos. Her essence had grown steady, a deep, grounding presence that felt ancient even in its first breath of being. Around her, the glow softened into a warm haze, its dim light drifting slowly across the contours of her forming presence like the first light that touches the earth before the sun has risen. The void, sensing her completeness, settled around her like a calm tide, no longer restless, no longer endless, without meaning. Chaos now held a subtle structure, not rigid, but gently shaped by Gaia's new gravity. It was as if the universe had taken its first step toward clarity. Gaia breathed again, a long, slow exhale that rippled outward in soothing waves. Each wave carried with it a warm resonance that softened the edges of the void, making chaos feel less like a cavern of nothing, and more like a womb preparing for more life to come. The hum at her core deepened, becoming fuller, more round, like the low note of an ancient instrument echoing across silent plains. This hum flowed outward, spreading across the dark with a gentle insistence. It did not demand space, it created it. Wherever her hum traveled, the stillness thickened, drawing into delicate layers that hovered in the air like fine dust caught in a single beam of light. These layers gathered around her wisps of potential, strands of form drawn to her gravity as if she were the quiet heart around which the universe was learning how to breathe. A soft tension formed, not harsh, not disruptive, but a warm expectancy, as if the void itself was leaning forward to witness her next motion. Gaia shifted, a movement gentle as the drift of sediment settling at the bottom of a still lake. The shift was small, but it resonated through chaos with a deep, rolling calm that wrapped the entire void in serenity. With that shift, Gaia began to settle further downward, as though she were lowering herself onto a bed of unseen softness that waited for her arrival. This was the universe's first moment of orientation. Downward. Foundation. The earliest hints of a direction emerging from the formless. The void, responsive and attentive, adjusted beneath her, gathering into a soft cradle that yielded to her weight and held her shape. Gaia's curve expanded once more, broad and gentle, suggesting the vastness she would one day become. Continents, valleys, mountains, all sleeping inside her essence like dreams not yet told. Within her, warmth pooled, growing heavier, denser, forming the earliest layers of what would someday be her body. A soft glow shimmered at her center, pulsing in slow, gentle waves. This glow illuminated the inner contours of her forming presence, revealing a deep solidity beneath her soft radiance. The glow expanded not outward, but inward, as if Gaia were gathering her strength, finding her core, anchoring her identity within the vast quiet of chaos. Chaos responded in kind. Where it had once drifted freely, it now circled around her like a halo of dark silk, gently revolving around her quiet gravity. Gaia's hum deepened further, its tone resonant, stable, full of the ancient wisdom that comes from simply being. With each breath, her presence grew more defined, more grounded, more inevitable. She was the first form in a universe desperate to learn how to hold shape. Her quiet gravity pulled the void into patterns, subtle curves, faint layers, soft lines. These were the earliest fingerprints of creation, etched not with force, but with maternal warmth. As Gaia continued to settle, the darkness above her began to stretch, not pulled, but gently lifted by the natural expansion of her presence. She was creating the concept of above without yet realizing it. Her descent into the void created depth. Her expansion upward created height. For the first time, the universe had a sense of orientation, a quiet, embryonic geometry held together by her simple act of being. The glow around her brightened, tinged with a warm gold that shimmered at the edges like sunlight caught in morning fog. It was the glow of completion. Gaia was nearly formed. Chaos, for the first time, felt full. And yet, It sensed there was more to come, more presences, more awakenings, more gentle ripples that would follow her. But Gaia was the first, the foundation, the quiet root of everything that would bloom in the dawn still far ahead. Slowly, Gaia lifted her essence, not her eyes, for she did not yet have them, but her awareness. She felt chaos around her, felt the softness of the void, felt the glow that protected her and the warmth that emanated from her own forming body. She recognized, on an instinctive level, that she existed, that she had awakened, that she was real. A final pulse rose from her core, soft and powerful, traveling outward like a ring of light. The void received it, held it, echoed it. This was the end of Gaia's becoming. She had awakened into the universe, and the universe, in that moment, opened itself to welcome the others, who would soon arrive in the gentle wake of her birth. Gaia's awakening had shifted the silence of chaos into something new, something warm, something attentive. Where the void had once been endless and indifferent, now it held a center, a calm, ancient presence that anchored the formless into meaning. Gaia's essence continued to glow softly, her light neither bright nor sharp, but steady, like a candle burning in a room that has waited too long for company. Around her, the darkness seemed to gather in reverence. Gentle waves of shadow folded around her curves like a blanket tucking itself more comfortably over a resting body. It was clear now that Gaia did not simply exist within chaos. Chaos existed around her. Her presence had turned the void into a place instead of an absence. And the universe, in a way that could not be named yet, felt grateful. Gaia's form settled into fullness, broad, rounded, foundation-like, the earliest suggestion of a world taking shape. Her inner warmth grew deeper, spreading outward in quiet expansions that made the space around her feel structured, even though no true structure had yet appeared. These expansions were the first hints of boundaries, not walls, not limits, but borders where one presence ended and the next might soon begin. Gaia felt this shift, not as thought, but as intuition, a soft awareness that something beyond her was waiting in the quiet, something that would soon emerge, just as she had. She did not fear this. Her presence was made not for conflict, but for grounding, for holding, supporting, embracing whatever would come next. Another pulse rose from her core. It moved through chaos, like a warm breeze, passing over a sleeping field. This pulse carved a deeper sense of below and a broader sense of around, as though Gaia were sculpting the earliest notions of space with the softness of her being. Above her, the glow thinned slightly, stretching upward, an instinctive preparation for something that had not yet arrived, but that the universe felt drawing closer. The thinning glow became a gentle veil, hovering above Gaia like the memory of a sky that did not yet exist. For the first time, there was a hint of above. This subtle separation between Gaia and the glow marked a turning point. She was no longer simply forming. She was positioned, held, situated within creation in a way that suggested a role larger than herself. Gaia, the calm foundation, the ancient cradle, the first mother, had taken her place. The universe acknowledged her with a soft, resonant hush, a quiet ripple that spread through the void, as though chaos itself were bowing in respect. And then, a new vibration stirred, not from Gaia, but from the spaces that her presence had shaped. A distant pulse, subtle and slow, moving through the darkness like a second heartbeat awakening in the void. It was faint, a whisper behind a whisper, but Gaia felt it. The universe felt it. It was the promise that she would not remain alone. For in the softened hush that followed Gaia's emergence, chaos was preparing to breathe once more, to bring forth another presence, another primordial being that would join her in the gentle, ancient quiet. Gaia lay still, her warmth radiating outward, inviting whatever came next to find comfort in the space she had created. The glow above her shimmered, as if sensing the coming change. The universe paused, the silence deepened, and the gentle vibration grew stronger, stepping softly into existence, the first sign that more life, more presence, more story was ready to emerge from chaos. Gaia, fully awake now, rested with serene certainty. She had become the first form, the first anchor, the first foundation. Section 1 closes here, with Gaia complete, and the universe ready for its next breath. The first primordial beings awaken. The awakening of Gaia did not end the stillness of chaos, it softened it. It warmed it. It prepared it. For the void, once empty and endless, was now shaped ever so lightly by her presence. Her gravity anchored the silence, her warmth steadied the dark, and her existence made a space where more beings could gently emerge. And so, as Gaia rested in her newfound presence, another tremor stirred through the depths of chaos, soft, slow, almost shy. It was not her doing. It was the universe itself exhaling again. A second pulse, fainter than the first, but unmistakably alive, whispered across the void, like the touch of a breeze in a place that had never known wind. Gaia sensed it, the way a quiet field feels the first footsteps of someone approaching from afar. The glow around her dimmed slightly, as if turning its attention toward a new point in the darkness. From that point, a thin brightness began to unfurl, not warm like Gaia, not heavy, not grounding, but delicate, like a single thread of light woven from the very edges of night. This light stretched softly, slowly, lengthening through chaos, like a ribbon drifting on unseen currents. It trembled once, as though nervous about its first steps into existence. Yet the darkness welcomed it. Chaos folded around the brightness, offering it the same gentleness it had given Gaia, a cradle of quiet, where the new presence could take shape. The ribbon of light curled inward, gathering itself into a soft, luminous knot. It pulsed, and in that pulse, the universe gained its second heartbeat. This was Eros, not yet the god of love, known in later ages, but the earliest echo of connection itself. He was the instinct that draws things together, the warmth of attraction before warmth existed, the soft pull that encourages separation to become unity. He did not speak, he did not shine brightly. He simply drew gently, subtly, as if reminding the cosmos that existence was sweeter when shared. Gaia felt his presence brush across her essence like a warm fingertip skimming the surface of still water. It comforted her. It made her feel less alone. Eros settled beside her, not touching, but near a whisper of companionship in the endless quiet. And as he settled, another shift stirred in the void. A new presence, cooler, darker, smoother than Gaia, began to rise. Where Gaia had brought weight and Eros had brought pull, this presence brought soft shadow, the velvet of a night sky before stars are born. She emerged slowly, as if rising from the folds of her own dark wings. Her form was fluid, shifting like smoke, yet graceful, like the gentle sweep of twilight across the horizon. This was Nyx's night. Her very being softened the glow round Gaia, drawing darkness closer but in a calming, comforting way. Where she passed, the void dimmed into velvet, not empty, but restful, like a shadow cast by something serene. Nyx drifted into the open space near Gaia and Eros, her movements smooth as drifting clouds. And from the shadow of her wake, another presence appeared, a darker shadow, cooler still, yet gentle. Erebus, the quiet darkness between things, the soft, thin shade that rests between light and lightness, breath and breath, thought and dream. Erebus was calm, a comfort in stillness. He did not disturb the void, he soothed it. Together, Nyx and Erebus settled into existence, not as threats, not as storms, but as the universe's first nightfall, spreading calm across the vastness. Gaia felt them arrive, felt the softness of their presence wrap around her like cooling mist. And she understood. She was not alone anymore. Creation had begun in earnest, and the universe, once silent and empty, now held four presences: Gaia, Earth, Eros, connection, Nyx, night, Erebus, shadow. The beginnings of form, of love, of rest, of stillness. Chaos had breathed them all into being, and more would come. The arrival of Nyx and Erebus cast a new softness across the void, not darkness as absence, but darkness as comfort, as rest, as the cool quiet that settles over a sleeping landscape. Their presence draped the universe in a veil of serene shadow, the kind that allows deeper forms to take shape behind it. Gaia, still warm and grounding, felt their calm drift gently around her. She did not shy away from them. Her essence embraced their cool stillness the way a warm hillside welcomes the shade of evening clouds. Eros, the thread of connection, lingered between them, fluttering like a small pulse that reminded each presence that they were not alone. And with his gentle influence, chaos breathed again. This breath was deeper, longer, almost musical. It stirred the darkness like a wind moving through curtains, inviting something else to rise from the quiet. Far beneath Gaia's settling presence, in the deepest fold of the void, a quiet rumbling began, not violent, not loud, but low and heavy, like the distant murmur of a cavern awakening. The rumble rolled upward, moving through the layers of soft night Nyx had spread, gathering density as it approached the surface of existence. Gaia felt it first. It vibrated through her core, a slow, deep resonance that seemed to call to her not for comfort, not for warmth, but for grounding. From that grounding, something vast and ancient took its first breath. The void beneath Gaia opened slowly, not like an eruption, but like an immense door swinging inward, revealing a shadow so deep it felt eternal. From within that depth, a presence emerged, heavy, enduring, a foundation beneath foundations. Tartarus. He rose like an immense cavern forming in the wake of a single exhale, his presence broad and quiet, stretching downward into depths even Gaia could not fully sense. But he was not cruel, not monstrous, not devouring. He was simply the deep, the concept of below, the ancient gravity that anchors existence from its darkest roots. Where Gaia became the surface, Tartarus became the depth. Where she held the upward curve of worlds, he held the downward pull of eternity. Their essences did not clash. They recognized each other immediately as complementary halves, two sides of the same vast breath. Gaia felt steadier with him. Tartarus felt defined by her. And in that mutual recognition, the universe gained its first true structure: above, below, earth, abyss. Chaos exhaled once more, content with the harmony settling into its expanse. But the breath carried something else, a subtle brightness fluttering at its edge, like the flicker of flame in a cavern too dark to see. The brightness danced upward, as if carried by a warm current. It drifted softly between the shadows of Erebus and the night silks of Nyx, bringing with it a gentle golden glow. This glow was not heavy like Gaia, nor cavernous like Tartarus, nor cool like Nyx, nor quiet like Erebus. It was light, airy, hopeful, a presence that shimmered without burning, gentle enough to illuminate even the darkest corners without disturbing their rest. From this glow, a new being emerged, small, at first, like a floating ember, but growing brighter as it took its first breath. This was Aether, the soft brilliance that would one day become the upper air, the purest light of the heavens. His radiance did not pierce or wound. It caressed gently, like the soft glow just before sunrise. Where Nyx wraps the universe in velvet night, Aether spread the faintest suggestion of dawn. And in the dimness beneath his glow, another presence stirred, quieter, paler, a gentle reflection of the light that birthed her. She rose like mist from the folds of the void, delicate, pale as morning frost, soft as the breath of a sleeping child. This was Hemeridae. She emerged beside Aether, not in brilliance, but in softness, the promise of morning, not the sun itself. Her presence did not chase Nyx away. It simply gave Nyx a gentle companion in the cycle to come, the balance of dark and light, rest and waking, silence and whisper. And so, in the still cradle of chaos, the primordial family quietly gathered. Gaia earth, Tartarus depth, Eros connection, Nyx night, Erebus shadow, Aether bright air, Hemeridae. The universe, once empty, now held a constellation of soft, ancient presences, each one balancing the others, each one unfolding with the gentleness of a dream's first breath. The hush around them deepened. Gaia lifted her awareness toward Aether's glow. Nyx drifted beside Erebus, like a veil of calm. Tartarus settled beneath them with silent strength. Eros fluttered between them all, a reminder of unity. Creation was no longer a single heartbeat. It was a quiet chorus, and more was yet to come. The quiet chorus of the primordial beings settled into the vast cradle of chaos, each presence adding a new texture to the once empty void. Gaia's gentle gravity, Tartarus' deep resonance, Nyx's velvet shadow, Erebus' soothing dusk, Aether's soft brilliance, Hemera's pale dawn, and Eros, the barely felt thread that tied them all into a single, growing harmony. Chaos held them, not as a parent, but as a boundless space that had found its first purpose to cradle the earliest shapes of existence. For a moment, the universe rested. It breathed quietly, as though content with what had taken form. But the stillness was not an ending. Creation had only just begun learning how to speak. Far at the edges of the void, in regions where darkness was thicker, older, and untouched by ether's glow, a stirring began. It was faint at first, like the rustle of fabric far across a silent room. But Gaia felt it, Tartarus felt it. Even Nyx, who knew every fold of darkness, lifted her awareness toward that distant tremor. The stir gathered strength, coiling slowly like fog twisting upward from an unseen gulf. This was not light, nor was it warmth. It was deeper, the birth of shape. Not form, but the possibility of form. Chaos quivered gently, opening its space to allow the tremor to rise. From that tremor, a presence emerged, vast, broad, weightless, yet enormous, like the stretch of sky before sky exists. It rose above Gaia in sweeping arcs, its presence stretching outward like an endless canopy. This was the first suggestion of a dome, a roof, a sheltering expanse forming itself over the primordial world. It shimmered faintly, pale and wide, like the ghost of a horizon. Gaia sensed it instantly. She lifted her awareness upward, toward the presence that hovered just above the glow that had sheltered her since birth. Gaia and the new presence regarded one another, not with eyes, but with recognition. A pull, a pairing, a complement. He was the expanse to her solidity, the reach to her rest, the arching vastness that answered her grounded curve. He was Aurano's sky in its oldest, softest essence. He was not yet stars, not yet wind, not yet light. He was simply the upward infinite, the first sense of above made real. Gaia felt a warmth bloom within her as Auranos expanded, stretching his delicate, early form across the void. He settled gently, letting his broad expanse rest above her curve, the way a cloud rests lightly above a sleeping hill. Their essences aligned, earth and sky, below and above, foundation and canopy. Between them, the universe gained its first structure, a place to stand, a place to rise, and everywhere between them a place for life to grow someday. Eros fluttered between them, brightening faintly as the attraction of opposites became the universe's first true bond. Gaia softened, Auranos expanded, and in the quiet between them, chaos breathed in satisfaction. Yet even this was not the end of awakening, for beneath Gaia, in the deep hum of Tartarus, something else began to stir. Not heavy, not vast, but sharp, a thin, bright spark woven from the heat of potential itself. The spark slid upward through the layers of shadow, darting between the ripples of Erebus, glancing faintly off the dim glow of Hemera's pale light. It was a restless spark, eager and curious, a spark that carried the impulse to shape, to craft, to make. Chaos watched it dance through the quiet, with something like amusement, a gentle acknowledgement that creation was beginning to experiment. This spark would one day ignite the fires of creation, the forces that sculpt mountains and hollow valleys, but for now, it was simply energy, a breath of motion where everything else moved like dream. It gathered near Gaia, flickering lightly against the edges of her presence, as though asking her permission to exist. Gaia, warm and grounding, did not refuse. She accepted every being with the same quiet grace. She had accepted the darkness, the dawn, and the sky. The spark settled beside her, small, incomplete, but necessary. The primordial family had grown fuller. Gaia Earth, Auranos, Sky Tartarus, Deep Eros, Connection, Nyx Night, Erebus Shadow Ether, upper light Hemera day and now, the spark of becoming still waiting to form a name. The universe, once empty, was beginning to feel crowded, not with bodies, but with concepts, essences, possibilities. Creation was learning its own alphabet, and the next letters would come soon. The small spark that had settled beside Gaia continued to flicker softly, a restless ember, in a world where everything else moved like drifting clouds. It did not yet have weight. It did not yet have purpose. But it had the one thing no other primordial presence possessed: motion. Even Eros, the gentle pull that bound all beings together, moved quietly, wispy as a thread. But this spark, it danced. It darted one way, then glided back, tracing invisible arcs through the soft shadows of Erebus and the pale glow of Hemera's dawn. The spark intrigued the universe. It intrigued chaos itself, for it represented something that had not yet been expressed: change, transformation, fire before fire. Gaia watched it calmly, her grounding presence softening the spark's restless whim. Uranus, spanning widely above her, let the spark's movements brush gently against his early sky. Even Nyx, who preferred the quiet, found the spark soothing a tiny star yet to be born within her velvet night. The spark did not speak, but it hummed a thin, eager sound that carried a promise. Something new was preparing to take shape. As the spark drifted upward, it left a faint trail like a streak of heat across cool air. And from that trail, chaos felt compelled to breathe again. The breath came slowly, a deep, rolling exhale that stirred every presence in the void. Gaia brightened softly, Ouranos shimmered, Nyx's shadows rippled. Out of that cosmic breath, two faint wisps appeared, so light they were almost invisible. They drifted together through the void, moving like twin feathers in a windless night. At first, they seemed like nothing more than gentle motions in the dark, the kind of illusions seen at the edges of sleep. But as they glided closer to Gaia, their forms became clearer. They were not sparks, like the restless ember. They were not shadows, like Erebus. They were not velvet night, like Nyx, nor grounding, like Gaia. They were something new. A pair of presences defined not by weight, but by breath. Wind, whisper. The first wisp unfurled itself into a long, soft curve, a slender swirl of potential that circled Gaia gently, as if curious about the world forming beneath her. The second wisp followed close behind, spiraling lightly around Hemera's pale glow, leaving trails that shimmered faintly like frost in morning light. As they drifted, their essences began to solidify, still delicate, still air-like, but more defined with each passing moment. They were the universe's first breath made visible, and slowly, as if drawn by Eros' gentle pull, the two wisps intertwined, not merging, but moving in harmony, like twin currents in a single breeze. They hovered together in the soft glow between Gaia and ether, and from their graceful dance, the universe whispered their names: Ananke and Kronos. Not yet the rigid deities of later myths, not yet the strict rulers of time and fate, but their earliest forms, their primordial essence. Ananke, necessity, the gentle force of inevitability. Kronos, time, the slow unfolding of one moment into the next. Their presence was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it shaped everything around them. Where Kronos drifted, moments followed in his wake, like ripples gently spreading from a stone dropped into water. Where Ananke glided, the ripples found direction, softly guided toward patterns that would someday become destiny. Gaia felt the change instantly. Her breaths, once limitless, now found rhythm. Her pulses, once drifting, now settled into cycles. Time had begun not as ticking seconds, but as gentle flow, and inevitability, not harsh fate, but natural order had begun to form its threads. Nyx's darkness felt deeper now, measured by the silent cadence of Kronos' breath. Hemera's pale glow felt like a moment, not an endless haze. Even the tiny spark paused briefly, feeling itself pulled into the soft rhythm that Kronos emanated. Gaia, steady and grounded, softly accepted this new flow, letting it cradle her presence with a soothing consistency. Chaos, watching all these pieces form, breathed in softly. Creation now had a foundation, a sky, a deep, a night, a shadow, a day, a light, a thread of love, a spark of becoming, and now the gentle unfolding of time and necessity. The universe was beginning to knit itself into a pattern slowly, softly, with the same patience as a dream weaving itself through sleeping minds. But chaos was not yet finished. There were more beings waiting in the quiet, more gentle presences ready to emerge. The soft arrival of Ananke and Kronos changed the quiet shape of the universe in ways no other primordial presence had done. Where Gaia had introduced form, and Auranos had introduced the arch of sky, and Tartarus had hollowed the deep, these two wisps introduced the subtle motion that carried everything forward. Kronos did not rush. He was not the grinding march of future ages. He drifted with the gentleness of a leaf falling through still air, slow, steady, a quiet unfolding that encouraged sequences to exist. Ananke flowed beside him, her long, delicate curves guiding Kronos' drifting path, not restricting him, but giving his motion purpose, a soft framework through which his time could glide. Together they moved like two strands of the same breeze, and wherever they passed, the other primordial beings felt a shift. Nyx's shadows changed subtly, sliding into deeper layers, as though finding comfort in the idea that one moment now led gently into the next. Hemera's pale light grew slightly brighter, a soft glow that hinted at repetition, day that returns, not day that is endless. Even ether shimmered differently, his brightness pulsing in soft intervals as Kronos' presence nudged the void into rhythm. Gaia felt time settle through her like warmth sinking into soil. Her breath found pace. Her pulses became cycles. Her stillness gained a heartbeat of continuity. She was no longer simply existing. She was enduring. Time gave her presence longevity, stretching her existence into a story, not a moment. Auranos, vast and tender above her, felt himself widen with purpose. His arching expanse responded to Kronos' rhythm, curving more clearly into the shape of a sky. He hovered lovingly above Gaia, as though time had revealed to him the comfort of staying near her. Eros fluttered between them all, gentler now, less wandering, more rhythmic. Kronos gave even love its first soft cadence. Ananke drifted in wide circles, her presence a whisper of inevitability, a reminder that creation always follows certain pathways, even if slowly, even if quietly. She wove those pathways between Gaia's warmth, Nyx's shadow, Hemera's dawn, Ether's brilliance, threads subtle as smoke, but strong enough to give the universe its very first pattern. And with this new pattern, Chaos stirred, not restlessly, not urgently, but with a deep, anticipatory calm, like a sleeping giant rolling gently beneath soft blankets. The stir traveled outward, reaching the far edges of the void, where darkness was older and thicker than even Nyx's velvet night. There, hidden behind layers of quiet potential, something waited, not vast like Tartarus, not warm like Gaia, not luminous like Aether, not cool like Erebus, not rhythmic like Kronos, not guiding like Ananke. Something different, a being shaped not by warmth or shadow or rhythm or fate, but by isolation. A presence born from the quiet corners chaos had not yet filled. Slowly, a dim glow flickered there like a solitary star far beneath a still ocean. It pulsed once, a small, lonely beat that echoed across the emptiness. Gaia felt it. Her warmth stretched outward, curious, concerned. Nyx turned her gaze toward the faint vibration, her shadows curling protectively around the others. Eros fluttered closer, drawn not by attraction but by empathy, for he sensed a longing in that pulse. The glow flickered again, this time stronger, as though emboldened by being noticed. And from the quiet depths of chaos' outermost shadows, a presence began to emerge. Slender, distant, wreathed in a soft loneliness that felt older than time itself. This was Moros, the earliest whisper of doom, not as destruction, but as the knowledge that all things must eventually reach their natural endings. He was not cruel. He was not harsh. He was a necessary echo, the counterbalance to becoming. His presence brought a solemn hush to the void. Hemera's glow dimmed slightly. Nyx's shadows deepened. Aether's light softened. Gaia felt no fear. She welcomed Moros, as she had welcomed all others, with quiet acceptance. For even the earth must one day rest. Moros drifted into the cradle of primordial beings, settling at the edge of their soft chorus, close enough to belong, far enough to let his solemn quiet be gentle, not heavy. And as he rested, chaos trembled again, a new breath gathering in the ancient dark. Another being would soon follow him, because the universe, even in its first dreams, understood this. Where endings exist, so do beginnings. Moros drifted at the edge of the forming cosmos, his quiet, solemn presence settling like a cool mist over the soft chorus of primordial beings. He did not darken the void, he simply gave it depth, a sense that every beginning carried within it a natural and gentle conclusion. Where Gaia nurtured, Moros hushed. Where Eros pulled things together, Moros reminded them that even unity had tender boundaries. Where Kronos flowed forward, Moros whispered that time was not endless. The universe grew calmer with him, among them not heavier, but more aware. It was a maturity that settled softly, as though chaos itself had taken a deep breath and exhaled wisdom. Yet chaos was not finished breathing. From the same distant shadows that had birthed Moros, another tremor stirred, lighter, swifter, similar to him, yet different in essence. This tremor moved like a thin thread of wind crossing a silent field at dusk. Faint, delicate, yet filled with purpose. It brushed past Erebus, causing his twilight to ripple gently. It glided along Hemera's glow, making her pale light flicker like a candle flame. It drifted close to Eros, who warmed slightly at the presence of a being that resonated with endings, but of a more fleeting kind. The tremor curled softly and formed into a slender figure, not with limbs or features, but with the essence of movement, like a shadow elongated by passing light. This being was Ker, the spirit of inevitable loss, not violent, not malicious, but woven from the idea that not all things can be held forever. Ker was a sigh in the cycle of fate, a soft reminder that partings are as natural as meetings. Gaia felt her presence and accepted it with the same calm she offered all. For the earth, even in dreamlike beginnings, understood that life and loss are branches of the same ancient tree. Ker drifted near Moros, as though recognizing him as a companion of sorts. But she stayed lighter, more fleeting, a wandering spirit, whose touch was gentle, not final. Their dual presence, doom and loss, gave the universe a subtle poignancy, a softness that made every moment feel more precious. Eros flickered between them, his warmth soothing their solemn nature. Kronos' rhythm wove their essence into the timeline of becoming. Nyx wrapped them in her velvet night, letting them rest in quiet shadows. And chaos breathed again. This breath was deeper, richer, filled with a quiet intensity like the air before a snowfall. A presence formed in that breath, dark, cool, gentle, but weighted with emotion as old as the universe itself. This presence stirred not at the edge of the void, but at its heart, the same warm cradle where Gaia had first awakened. A soft pulse emerged, heavier than Eros, gentler than Moros, warmer than Erebus, cooler than Hemera. It was the pulse of sorrow, but not sorrow as pain, not sorrow as fear, sorrow as recognition, as empathy, as the understanding that with becoming comes vulnerability. From this pulse, a figure formed in quiet folds, slowly, softly, like a tear gathering on the edge of a peaceful dream. This was Oasis, the spirit of gentle grief. Her presence did not dim the void. It softened it, the way a cloudy day can render the world more tender, more aware, more connected. Gaia felt Oasis and welcomed her with a maternal warmth. The earth would one day know grief and hold it gently in her soil. Nyx curled her shadows around Oasis protectively, as though sheltering a child who knew too much. Eros fluttered closer, as if to reassure her that sorrow, too, belonged in connection. Moros stood with calm acceptance. Ker drifted thoughtfully, quiet, understanding. Kronos carried Oasis into the rhythm of the cosmos, giving her emotion a place in the unfolding story. The universe felt fuller now, not crowded, but complete in its spectrum of feeling. And again, chaos breathed. This breath was softer than the last, a sigh of deep stillness that rippled outward like calm over water. From the breath, another presence arose, subtle, dim, like a shadow behind a shadow. This presence did not hum with warmth or sorrow. It glided forward with a quiet neutrality, gentle and faint as distant memory. It was Momos, the soft essence of blame, not harsh or accusatory, but the quiet reflection that follows every action, the whisper that asks, could things have been different? Momos drifted lightly near Ker and Oasis, as though drawn to their contemplative nature. His presence brought a thoughtful quiet to the cosmos, a stillness that helped balance the warmth of Eros and the strength of Gaia. The primordial family had now grown wide and nuanced, a tapestry of emotions, forces, patterns, and possibilities. Creation was no longer just emergence. It was beginning to understand itself. And still, Chaos exhaled softly, preparing to bring forth the next being. The soft arrival of Momos settled into the primordial chorus like a quiet echo, a whisper of reflection that drifted gently between the newly born spirits. He did not disturb the stillness. He did not sharpen the air. He merely added a subtle shade to the universe's emotional palette, the gentle awareness that even the earliest choices carried ripples. Gaia sensed this, and her presence warmed, as if embracing the new nuance Momos brought. Nyx's shadows deepened slightly, their velvet folds curving around him in welcoming darkness. Oasis hovered nearby, her soft sorrow blending naturally with his thoughtful calm. Kerr lingered at the edges, her presence faint and watchful, as though understanding that blame and loss were siblings in the quiet tides of existence. Momos settled, and the universe paused again, not in confusion, but in a contemplative hush. Chaos breathed in. The breath was long, low, unhurried, like a ripple forming at the bottom of a deep lake. Something stirred in that breath that was different from everything before. Not warm, not shadowed, not sorrowful, not rhythmic. Something quiet, something distant, something isolated. Gaia felt it only faintly, as though the presence was drifting far beyond her grounding pull. Nyx sensed it next, her dark wings curling inward protectively. Even Tartarus, silent, cavernous, Tartarus, felt a faint tremble through the vastness below him. The tremor gathered shape, not near the others, but far away in a place where the glow of ether barely reached, and where Hemera's gentle dawn could not yet warm. From this lonely pocket of void, a figure emerged, soft, slender, and incredibly fragile, a presence made of isolation itself. It drifted forward like a pale blossom caught in an endless night wind. This was Elios, the quiet spirit of mercy. But mercy, in its earliest form, was not a saving force, nor a comforting hand. It was loneliness. The gentle ache of knowing others exist, but feeling separate from them. Elios floated timidly at the edge of the primordial family, unsure, uncertain, a soft presence trembling like dew on a cold morning leaf. Eros fluttered toward her at once, as though drawn by her longing for connection. Nyx's shadows draped softly around her, offering shelter, not smothering her light. Gaia's warmth reached outward, steady and maternal, inviting Elios to approach. And for the first time, Elios moved willingly, not pulled, not carried, but choosing to drift closer. Her presence brushed against Oasis, and the two reacted as if recognizing one another. Sorrow and mercy, pain and compassion, twin petals from the same bloom. Elios settled beside Oasis, her fragile glow becoming slightly warmer in her company. Chaos breathed out again, encouraged by how naturally its creations were beginning to find one another. This breath carried a deeper resonance, a density that felt neither heavy nor light but meaningful. The resonance curled through the void like a slow-moving wave, and where it passed, the earliest textures of emotion seemed to vibrate. Gaia closed her newborn awareness, as if listening. Nyx spread her wings wider, as though preparing the night to welcome something new. Tartarus opened the depths slightly, inviting a being that resonated with gravity, and from that resonant wave, a new presence emerged, shaped not from loneliness, not from regret, not from sorrow, but from soft yearning, a gentle ache for what could be. The presence drifted slowly into the open space, smooth, cool, and tender, almost like a breath, caught between longing and hope. This was Pothos, the spirit of yearning, the earliest form of desire for something just beyond reach. He floated toward Eros, instinctively not to merge, but to echo him. Where Eros connected, Pothos yearned. Where Eros bound, Pothos reached. Together, they formed the earliest twin currents of love, connection and longing. Gaia felt Pothos' presence and welcomed him like a warm valley welcomes rain. Nyx drifted around him, her shadows softening his ache. Ether brightened slightly, as if his glow wanted to give Pothos something beautiful to yearn toward. Oasis and Elios hovered close, their gentle sorrow and gentle mercy finding comfort in the quiet vulnerability of yearning. And still, chaos exhaled. This breath was softer, brighter, filled with a fluttering energy that felt almost playful. A new spark ignited, lighter than Pothos, gentler than Eros, a shimmering presence woven from pure possibility. It danced around the primordial beings with youthful enthusiasm, leaving trails of soft glimmer that faded like fireflies. This was Himeros, the spirit of affection, the tender pull that warms the heart before love has a name. He flitted joyfully between Gaia, Nyx, Aether, and Eros, as though trying to greet the entire universe at once. For the first time, the cosmos felt something that resembled joy. Soft, quiet, glimmering, the primordial tapestry was now woven with warmth, shadow, depth, connection, grief, mercy, desire, and affection. And chaos, cradling them all, began preparing to bring forth something even greater. Beings who would not be wisps, nor echoes, nor faint pulses, but foundations. More primordial forces were waiting in the dark. Himeros drifted through the early cosmos like a soft flicker of candlelight, his presence warming the coldest corners of chaos' vast cradle. Where Pothos yearned and Eros connected, Himeros soothed his gentle affection, giving tenderness to the newborn universe. Gaia felt him brush against her surface, a warmth like morning sun touching a sleeping meadow. Nyx welcomed him, her shadows parting slightly to let his glimmer pass through. Aether shimmered brighter as Himeros curled softly through his glow, delighted by the gentle pulse of brightness. The universe, for the first time, felt the earliest hint of emotion that was not solemn, not heavy, not contemplative, but light, a soft joy, a sweetness, a feeling that the cosmos was not just forming, but beginning to feel alive. Chaos breathed again. This breath was slower than all the breaths before it, not tired, but profound. A breath taken with intention. It rolled outward like a long exhale spreading across a quiet lake, calming everything it touched. Gaia quieted her hum. Nyx folded her wings. Tartarus deepened his stillness. Eros, Pothos, and Himeros hovered softly in anticipation. From within this deep breath, a presence emerged, not quick, not restless, but slow, heavy, and immensely ancient. It rose from the farthest depths, where even Tartarus felt small, a dark, heavy resonance echoing through layers of time and shadow. At first, it seemed like a vibration, a slow, distant rumble that felt older than the void itself. Then the rumble thickened, taking the shape of a presence woven from the heaviest threads of chaos silence. This presence was not cold. It was not cruel. It was simply inevitable. The gravity of endings, not as tragedy, but as completion. As the presence rose, the primordial beings felt it like a gentle pressure settling upon the universe, a reminder that every cycle, every rhythm, every unfolding moment has a point of rest. Finally, the presence emerged fully from the depths. Thanatos, the spirit of gentle death, not destruction, not cruelty, but peaceful release. The stillness after the last breath, the quiet that cradles the weary. He drifted into the cosmic assembly with an aura as soft as moonlit fog. Nyx recognized him first. He was, in some ways, her own child of the dark, a natural continuation of her calming shadows. Her wings folded around him, not possessively, but protectively. Gaia felt his presence and welcomed him with profound calm. For the earth would one day receive all things when their time had passed. Oasis felt him and was soothed by the gentle end he represented. Ker understood him instantly. He carried the quiet truth of her own essence. Moros accepted him, for Thanatos was the gentlest form of the doom he embodied. Eros drifted around him softly, as if acknowledging that even love must release. Thanatos settled near Nyx, not speaking, not stirring, simply existing as a necessary, comforting balance to the life that was now beginning to fill the cosmos. But chaos had not finished breathing. Another pulse rose, smaller than Thanatos, lighter and tinged with sweetness. Where Thanatos was calm nightfall, this new presence was the soft ache of letting go, not in sorrow, but in peace. It drifted upward in delicate curls of light gray, like smoke rising from a smoldering ember. This was Hypnos' sleep, brother to Thanatos, born from the same deep breath, but gentler still. Where Thanatos offered final rest, Hypnos offered temporary rest. The drifting, the dreaming, the soft surrender that renews all beings. He floated close to Gaia, and she felt his presence settle upon her like a warm blanket drawn over tired shoulders. Nyx embraced him with deep affection. She knew him well, for sleep blooms most beautifully under the quiet wings of night. Hemera dimmed her glow respectfully as Hypnos drifted past. Even day understood the value of sleep. Eros warmed him. Pothos yearned toward him. Himeros fluttered joyfully around his calming aura. Hypnos rested beside Thanatos, twin spirits of rest, one temporary, one eternal, balancing the early universe with profound peace. The primordial tapestry was now rich and layered. Warmth, shadow, depth, sorrow, mercy, longing, affection, doom, sleep, gentle death. And in the midst of all this, Gaia and Ouranos remained the foundation, earth and sky quietly holding everything together. Yet chaos still had more to give. Another breath, subtle, cool, and shimmering, began to rise from the outer folds of the universe. Something new was forming. The soft presence of Hypnos drifted through the void like a calming haze, his gentle aura settling over the primordial family with the sweetness of a long exhale. Yet beneath that soothing stillness, the cosmos was changing. Kronos' subtle rhythm was becoming stronger, no longer just a faint pulse, but a soft cadence that flowed through the universe like distant waves touching a quiet shore. His presence gave structure to the moods and tremors of the primordial beings. Moments began to form, not sharp, not defined, but perceptible. And in these first, fragile moments, something new stirred, not born of warmth, nor of night, nor of loneliness, nor of yearning, but of balance, a presence that rose to gently correct the tilts, the shifts, the slight imbalances that naturally emerged as creation grew more crowded and more complex. This presence was subtle, a soft pressure that moved like an unseen hand, aligning a crooked thread. Even before she formed, the other primordial beings felt her influence. Eros fluttered more evenly. Pothos' yearning softened. Ker's restless drift calmed. Oise's sorrow eased slightly. Even the playful glimmers of Himeros quieted into a gentler dance. Something was coming to restore equilibrium. Gaia felt it first, a calming coolness that washed over her like a breeze settling the dust on a warm hillside. Nyx felt it next, a clarity in the night, a sense of order woven into her darkness. Ether shimmered more cleanly, as though the air above was being gently polished. Even Tartarus felt a deep grounding steadiness ripple through his unknowable depths. And then, in the silence between two breaths, she appeared. A soft figure woven from justice, balance, and the quiet correction of all things misaligned. She manifested not in brightness, not in shadow, but in a calm glow that felt perfectly centered, the light of a candle that neither flickers nor dims. This was Nemesis, not wrath, not vengeance, but equilibrium, the soft return of what is owed to each presence in the cosmos so the universe does not tilt too far in any direction. She drifted forward with grace, her presence steady and unwavering, as though she had been at the heart of the universe long before she revealed herself. Her glow was neither warm nor cold, it was the temperature of truth. Gaia welcomed her instantly. The earth, even in its earliest essence, understood the need for balance. Gaia's warmth rose softly around Nemesis, a gesture of deep recognition. Nyx folded her shadows around the new being, not possessively, but respectfully. Night always carried a quiet understanding of fairness. Eros fluttered near Nemesis, then paused, as though sensing that her presence shaped love into something honest. Pothos yearned toward her, but gently, not overwhelmingly. Hypnos drifted beside her, their energies harmonious. The restfulness he brought, balanced effortlessly with the quiet order she exuded. Even Thanatos felt steadier beside her, his finality softened by her presence, his boundaries clearer. Nemesis took her place in the cosmos, with the quiet certainty of a scale finding perfect equilibrium. Her arrival brought a settling hush to the universe, a deep, peaceful calm like the moment after a stormless rain. The primordial tapestry was becoming more refined. The universe now held not only emotion and depth, but balance, a necessary anchor before more complex forces could be born. And chaos, gentle and infinite, drew another breath. This one was brighter, lighter, as though preparing to bring forth a presence that would add movement where balance had settled. Inside that breath, something shimmered, a glint of gentle mischief, a flicker of the unexpected. The next being was waking slowly in the folds of the void. Nemesis had taken her place with a calm certainty that rippled through the primordial world in quiet waves of alignment. Her presence did not restrain, nor did it correct harshly. It simply guided every force, every emotion, every breath into soft equilibrium. After her arrival, the vast expanse of chaos felt more ordered, not constrained, but gracefully balanced, as though the universe had just learned how to stand upright. But balance even the gentlest kind, creates space for contrast. Once things are steady, a subtle movement can be felt more clearly, and chaos, always breathing, always dreaming, began to exhale a new presence, one that shimmered at the boundary between calm and gentle disturbance. It began as a flutter, a tremor not of fear or sorrow or longing, but of unsettling curiosity, the kind of shift that stirs the air before a thought is born. This tremor was delicate, light, barely perceptible, like the soft rustle of fabric in a still room. The primordial beings felt it. Eros paused mid-flight, Himeros glow flickered, Pothos yearning stretched, seeking the source. Oises looked toward the tremor, her sorrow momentarily quieting. Even Nemesis tilted her calm presence just slightly, as though feeling the scale tip by a fraction. From the trembling void, something small began to take form, not heavy like Tartarus, not grounding like Gaia, not vast like Auranos, not tender like Ilios, not solemn like Moros, not sweet like Himeros. This presence was lighter, quicker, a ripple of friction across the gentle surface of creation, a spark that did not burn, but nudged. It slipped between shadows and light, between affection and sorrow, between day and night, between rhythm and stillness, never stopping, never settling. It curled itself into a small, wavering shape, almost like a drifting petal caught in a restless breeze. And as the shape solidified, the universe felt a new note enter its cosmic harmony. Soft, sharp, playful, and strange, a presence that tickled the edges of calm. A presence that stirred even the most still emotions into tiny motions. This was Eris, the spirit of gentle discord. Not chaos as destruction, but chaos as unsettling curiosity. The ripple that wakes a mirror-still pond. The tiny shift that keeps the universe from becoming too still. Her arrival was not a disturbance. It was a breath of variability, a reminder that even the softest cosmos needs a touch of movement, a little unpredictability, to keep creation alive. Eris drifted forward with a delicate shiver, tracing patterns in the void that looked like ripples made of moonlight. Nemesis felt her presence and welcomed her, as a necessary counterweight for balance is meaningless without the occasional, gentle imbalance. Eros approached her with interest, curious about this flicker that refused to stay still. Pothos reached toward her, yearning for the unknown she represented. Himros buzzed around her playfully, delighted by her erratic glow. Gaia sensed her lightly, like a tremble beneath the soil that did not harm, but brought a subtle awakening. Auranos' vast form tingled slightly, as if Eris' presence had brushed against the fabric of the sky like a stray breeze. Nyx watched her with calm eyes, her velvet shadows offering Eris a place to drift when she needed rest. Even Tartarus deep, ancient Tartarus, felt her flutter as a faint vibration passing through the abyss. Eris settled lightly in the space between beings, never lingering, never anchoring, a wandering shimmer that ensured nothing in the cosmos remained entirely predictable. Her presence brought subtle life to the stillness, and chaos, feeling the gentle buzz of her existence, prepared to release another breath. This breath carried weight, but not the heavy weight of sorrow or doom. It was the weight of passage, of transition, of movement from one state to another. The breath swept through the void like a cool wind over deep water, leaving behind the sense that something was shifting, something that would help the cosmos learn how to travel, how to cross, how to journey. A presence shimmered at the edge. The breath, chaos, released after Eris' arrival, was different from the breaths before it. It did not shimmer with affection, nor tremble with sorrow, nor weigh the void with inevitability. This breath moved. It drifted through the cosmos with the quiet patience of a river carving its first gentle path. Not forcefully, not loudly, simply flowing where the empty spaces invited it to go. The primordial beings felt it pass. Gaia sensed it as a soft current flowing along her forming curves. Nyx sensed it as a subtle breeze stirring her velvet night. Aether shimmered as the current brushed the edges of his pale brilliance. Hypnos swayed, lulled by its smooth drift. Even Tartarus felt it, a faint movement echoing through depths that had known only stillness. And from this flowing breath, a faint shimmer began to gather. It appeared first as a thin line drawn across the dark, a path traced by invisible hands. The line curved softly, glowing faintly, then drifted downward like a ribbon of moonlit water. It did not form a being immediately. It traveled. It circled. It explored, as though deciding where it belonged. Eros followed it curiously. Himeros tugged at its edges. Pothos yearned for its quiet promise of movement. Ker drifted thoughtfully beside it, recognizing its role in the natural ebb of life and loss. The line flickered, then thickened. It curved inward, folding like a stream, gathering itself into a pool. From the gathering shimmer, a presence began to condense, soft, cool, quiet, yet filled with purpose. It was neither shadow nor light, neither sorrow nor affection, neither deep nor high. It was the space between the path from one point to another. As the presence took shape, the other beings felt its gentle pull, a sense of direction, a sense of journey, a sense that existence was not meant to remain still, but to flow. The presence expanded, stretching into a long, slender form, not humanoid, not animal, but something like a current-given consciousness. It shimmered like the reflection of starlight, rippling across water. This was Charon, in his primordial essence, not yet the ferryman of later ages, not yet guide of souls, but the earliest whisper of transition, the guide of passages, the spirit of crossing, the ancient instinct that all things move from one place to another. Charon drifted slowly through the cosmic cradle, his presence like a soft tide pulling at the edges of everything he passed. Gaia felt him, and welcomed his gentle motion. The earth would one day need rivers, currents, pathways. Nyx folded a wing around his drifting form, as though offering him a quiet route through the night. Hypnos brushed against him, recognizing in Charon the same drifting motion as dreams traveling between worlds. Thanatos acknowledged him with calm, understanding, for endings without passage are incomplete. Nemesis felt his presence and balanced him into the cosmic pattern with tender precision. Eros, Pothos, and Himeros danced lightly around him, their currents weaving into his, forming the early interplay of desire, love, and transition. Charon settled near Tartarus and Nyx, a bridge between depth and shadow. But this new presence was only the beginning. Chaos, feeling its tapestry grow richer, prepared to breathe again. This breath did not shimmer, nor weigh, nor sadden, nor balance. It dreamed. a soft, drifting pulse, lighter than Hypnos, paler than Hemera, gentler than even Oases. A whisper that carried with it the first seeds of imagination. The breath that chaos released after Charon was softer than any that had come before, a breath that drifted through the universe like a faint veil of mist gliding across a sleeping lake. It carried no weight, no urgency, no sorrow, no yearning, no rhythm. It carried only gentle possibility, the kind that flickers behind closed eyes when the world grows quiet. Gaia sensed it first. It brushed her surface like the faintest touch of morning dew before sunlight has found it. Nyx felt it next, a small glimmer dancing across her velvet darkness, like the first spark that appears before a dream takes shape. Hypnos stirred with deep recognition, for this breath was kin to him. It was the pulse of slumbered imagination, the drifting tide of visions yet unformed. From the soft breath, tiny motes of pale light began to rise, not bright, not steady, but flickering flashes like stars blinking behind a thin veil of fog. They drifted upward in clusters, gathering loosely like petals floating on a quiet stream. These motes pulsed gently, each one carrying a faint shimmer, a suggestion of an image, a shadow of a memory that had not yet been lived. As they floated through the soft hush of the newborn universe, they began to curve inward, drawn toward Hypnos like sparks returning to a resting flame. Hypnos opened his presence to them, a warm cradle that welcomed their flickering forms. The motes drew closer, their glimmers lengthening into thin, wavering trails of light shapes that hovered between form and formlessness. Then, in a soft, collective breath, they merged. Their many lights fused into a single shimmering cluster, not one being, but many, the one Nairoi. Dreams, not the visions themselves, but the beings who would carry them. They were delicate, like the faint shapes behind half-closed eyes, wisps of imagination, curves that resembled wings, trails of soft luminescence that rippled like whispers. As they drifted outward, the Oneiroi split into many forms, each one a fragment of the dreaming world. Some dark, shaped from Nyx's velvet shadows, some pale, woven from Hemera's faint dawn, some shimmering, born from ether's gentle light, some heavy and warm, resting close to Gaia's presence. They fluttered like quiet birds moving through a dreamscape made entirely of stillness. Hypnos gathered them lovingly, recognizing them as companions of his essence, children of slumber, messengers of vision. Nyx extended her wings in a wide, protective arc, creating a vast night realm where the Oneiroi could glide freely, a sanctuary of shadow where dreams could grow. Gaia accepted them too, for one day they would drift across her lands and nestle in the minds of all who walked the world. Even Tartarus felt their presence like distant echoes, soft dreams sinking into deep, ancient caverns. The primordial family watched the Oneiroi dance through the void, their shimmering wings making the universe feel warmer, softer, more alive. Eros glided between them playfully, stirring them into brighter patterns. Himeros formed small ripples of affection around them, drawing their luminous shapes into gentle spirals. Pothos yearned for their soft visions of what might someday be. Oases felt comfort, for dreams could ease sorrow even before sorrow existed fully. Ker and Moros watched with calm distance, even endings would someday be softened by dreams. And Nemesis balanced their drifting forms, ensuring that dreams did not overwhelm the still unwritten order. The Oneiroi settled around Hypnos, a constellation of delicate beings, like a cluster of fireflies sleeping on the wings of night. Chaos, pleased with their quiet radiance, breathed again. This breath was steadier, calmer, carrying the soft essence of connection beyond warmth, a presence shaped from companionship itself. A faint glow began to rise. The Oneiroi drifted like a soft constellation, their wings shimmering in gentle pulses, as they settled into the quiet realm woven by Hypnos and Nyx. Their presence wrapped the universe in a delicate hush, a hush filled with the promise of imagination, visions, and the first glimmers of stories yet to be told. But chaos, ever patient, ever dreaming, breathed again. This breath was calm, a steady, warm exhalation that moved through the void like two hands reaching for each other in the dark. It carried a softness that was neither longing like Pothos, nor affection like Himeros, nor empathy like Elios. It was the softness of companionship. It drifted in slow, quiet curls, gentle as leaves floating on a pond at dusk, gentle as voices murmuring beside a hearth. The primordial beings sensed it. Gaia warmed through her core, as if greeted by an old friend. Nyx felt her shadows grow deeper, more serene. Aether shimmered as though someone had brushed fingers along the surface of his light. Eros felt a flutter that was neither desire nor pull, but something humbler, something kinder. Hypnos recognized it as the warmth felt when one falls asleep beside someone trusted. The breath gathered in the void slowly, softly coalescing into a presence that glowed with gentle warmth but no brightness. Its form took shape like the curl of two arms coming together. A soft outline emerged, warm, rounded, glowing faintly with the color of comfort. When the presence finally opened, it revealed a being made of simple closeness, pure and serene. This was Philotes, the primordial spirit of friendship, gentle companionship, and trust. Not love, not longing, not affection, but the quiet, steady bond that holds beings together without demand. Philotes drifted toward Gaia first, her presence settling like a warm hand on the curve of the earth. Gaia welcomed her instantly, for the earth would one day carry countless forms of life, each seeking connection. Nyx approached her softly, her wings spreading like curtains to envelop Philotes in velvet night. Hypnos brushed her gently, for sleep and friendship share the same tenderness. Eros glided around her in circles, as though delighted at this new form of connection. Himeros flitted close, curious at a bond that asked for nothing. Elios felt comfort in Philotes' glow. Mercy often grows in the presence of companionship. Even Moros and Ker, spirits of doom and loss, felt her soothing presence ease the shadows of their nature. Philotes settled between Gaia and Nyx, a gentle bridge between earth and night. Her glow added something new to the tapestry of the universe, a quiet unity, not formed by attraction, but by trust. And with Philotes in place, chaos breathed again, a lighter breath, quicker, a little mischievous. A glimmer appeared, thin and flickering, like a spark of cunning darting behind a smile. It moved through the void, with agile grace slipping past the Oneiroi, weaving between Pothos and Himeros, nudging Hypnos with a playful tremor. Gaia felt it pass like a tickle along her early surface. Nyx sensed it as a flicker in her deepest shadows. Nemesis narrowed her calm presence just a little, as though preparing to measure what this new being would bring. The glimmer zigzagged in light, effortless darts, a streak of shimmering wit before wit existed. And then it coiled inward, forming a small, playful shape, a presence that radiated cleverness, but gently, never harshly. This was Dolos, the spirit of trickery, in its softest, most harmless form, the mischievous spark, the playful idea, the tiny disruptions that create movement and curiosity. He flickered along the void, drawing small patterns that disappeared moments later. Eris watched him with delighted amusement. Discord and mischief danced well together. Eros chased him playfully, trying to catch his flickering form. Himeros buzzed after him like a joyful sparkler. Nemesis observed him carefully, for even the smallest trick required balance. And Gaia, ever patient, allowed him to glide along her forming surface, a gentle reminder that even calm Earth will one day host the cleverness of living beings. Dolos took his place in the growing cosmos, his presence giving a tiny shimmer of movement to the universe's still soft structure. And Chaos, feeling the tapestry reach a new level of depth, prepared another breath. This one was faint, distant, a thin shimmer that trembled like a thought barely formed. It would bring forth something subtle, fragile, and ancient. Dolos' playful shimmer drifted into the quiet tapestry that now filled the once empty void. His presence light, clever, flickering, left tiny ripples of motion that never grew disruptive, but kept the stillness from settling too heavily. Creation breathed beneath his steps, each flicker of his essence stirring a delicate spark in the early cosmos. Yet, as his trails dimmed, the universe fell into a deeper hush, a hush that felt fragile, as though holding its breath for something softer still. Chaos inhaled. The breath it drew was thin, trembling, barely there, as if the void itself feared the weight of the next being it would birth. And then, Chaos exhaled. The exhale did not spread in bold waves or glowing trails. It drifted upward like a faint wisp of pale smoke, curling loosely, almost shyly, around the primordial beings. Gaia felt it only faintly, a cool flutter touching the edges of her stability. Nyx sensed it as a faint whisper, shifting behind her darkest folds. Hypnos stirred, recognizing the exhale as something close to his dreams, but far more delicate. The One-Eroi paused mid-flight, their luminous wings flickering, as though sensing a new companion approaching quietly. The wisp drifted with hesitance, not out of fear, but because its very nature was subtlety, a presence not meant to shine, nor to stir, nor to command attention. A presence meant to hover at the fragile edges of perception. The wisp hung in the void, quivering softly. Then, slowly, very slowly, it gathered into a delicate form, a small outline, a trembling glow, a presence woven from half-truths, almost thoughts, and the delicate shimmer of deception so gentle it could barely be called deceit. This was Aparte, the primordial essence of illusion, misunderstanding, and the faint, drifting veil that can settle between what is and what seems to be. She was not malicious, she did not harm. Her illusions were as soft as mist, as transient as breath on cool air. She existed in the subtle distance between intention and perception. Her presence folded lightly through the cosmic cradle, a shimmering blur that gently distorted the air without ever breaking its calm. Dolos approached her first, playfully flickering at her edge, for mischief recognized illusion as its quiet sibling. But Apate did not chase him. She only drifted, a faint shimmer slipping through his clever trails like a dream one cannot fully grasp. Nyx looked upon her with deep understanding, for night often carries illusions in its shadows. Gaia sensed her, and felt no threat, for even illusions would one day drift across the surface of the world in soft, harmless ways. Eros moved closer and paused, his pull flattening slightly, as though uncertain where Apate truly was. Eros attempted to flutter around her, but she slipped through his affectionate spark like a whisper. Hypnos found her presence, soothing, for sleep and illusion are often companions. The one Eroi approached her carefully, their dream wings brushing the edges of her glow, creating small ripples of vision and distortion. Apate shivered, with a fragile pulse, not from fear, but from recognition. She belonged to the soft, fragile parts of creation and chaos. Feeling her integrate into the primordial tapestry, exhaled once more. This breath was steadier, but faint, a breath that carried the weight of something ancient and fragile. The slow wearing, the gentle fading, the quiet truth that all things age. From this breath, a dim glow began to rise, not sorrowful, not ominous, but inevitable. A presence as soft as dust settling on old stone. The wisp of apate, soft, wavering, almost unsure, had barely settled into the cosmic tapestry when chaos released another breath. This one was quieter. It moved like a soft sigh escaping from the universe itself. A sigh carrying weight without heaviness, truth without sharpness. It drifted as dust drifts, slow, delicate, floating on currents, too gentle to be seen. Gaia sensed it like a faint settling across her forming surface, as though something older than time itself had brushed against her. Nyx felt it as a dimming of her shadows, not a loss, but a soft reminder that even darkness has depth and memory. Hypnos felt it as the warmth of a long sleep beginning to cool. Even Tartarus, deep and endless, felt this breath sink downward like sediment in still water. The breath moved with solemn gentleness, curling into a faint glow that flickered like the last ember of a dying fire. The glow trembled, gathering substance not from brightness but from duration, from the slow unfolding of what lasts and then slowly fades. And then, from the tender hush of the cosmos, a presence formed, tall in essence but frail in nature, soft, quiet, ancient, a being woven from the gentle decline that touches all things born into time. This was Geras, the spirit of aging, of wear, of the gradual softening that follows long existence. But he was not cruel, not harsh, not a thief of vitality. He was the quiet truth that everything changes, deepens, softens, and eventually yields. He drifted forward like a faint ripple beneath a setting sun. Gaia welcomed him, feeling his presence settle through her like rings forming inside a growing tree. Kronos recognized him instantly, for time had called him forth, and time would always cradle him. Nyx wrapped him in a velvet fold of night, giving him a place to rest his weary glow. Oises looked at him with deep, tender sorrow, but even she softened in the presence of his quiet dignity. Momos watched him thoughtfully. Kerr drifted nearer, understanding the natural erosion that gently follows life. Apate flickered beside him, her illusions bending around the truth he carried. Hypnos settled close to him for deep sleep, and aging share an ancient kinship. Even Dolos stilled his playful trails when Geras passed. Mischief flickered briefly, then quieted as if bowing to age. And Philotes, gentle spirit of friendship, drifted to his side with warm acceptance, her glow reminding Geras that aging is softened when shared. Geras took his place among the primordial family, neither bright nor dark, neither warm nor cold, simply present, as steady and soft as the slow wearing that completes all cycles. But chaos was not yet done. Another breath stirred lighter than sorrow, lighter than loss, lighter even than illusion. A breath that glittered with the delicate sharpness of thought, insight, cunning. The breath shimmered like a fine silver line drawn in air. It carried not mischief like Dolos, not trickery like Apate, but cleverness, the spark of calculation, the soft edge of craft. The shimmer began to pulse. Something quick-minded was preparing to enter the cosmos. Geras had barely settled into his quiet place within the tapestry of creation, a frail but comforting presence, when chaos let out another breath. This breath was different. It shimmered. It glinted. It flashed like the edge of a small, hidden blade catching a sliver of moonlight. Not sharp enough to cut. Not bright enough to dazzle. Just noticeable. A presence that seemed to say, something knows. Something sees. Something understands. The primordial beings felt it. Nyx sensed a thin glimmer slipping across her shadows, like a whisper of thought. Gaia felt a hint of pressure on her forming surface, not weight, but intention. Eros fluttered closer, as though drawn to a new kind of curiosity. Dolos stilled, stepping aside as if recognizing a kindred spark of cleverness. Even Apate's hazy illusions trembled slightly as the breath passed through her. This new presence could see through veils. Kronos felt a subtle tick in his rhythm, as though this being could weave through time's threads with delicate fingers. The breath curled inward, gathering itself into a faint spiral. The spiral shimmered with a thin silver light, a light that did not warm, but illuminated, exposing small details the cosmos had not noticed before. Slowly, a presence stepped free from that spiral light, smooth, subtle, shaped from quiet insight. This was Oistros, the primordial spark of intelligence, craft, and sharp awareness. Not the intellect of mortals, not yet. This was the first flicker of careful observation, the soft prickle of thought forming for the first time. Oistros drifted forward like a needle of faint light threading its way between beings. He moved with purpose, but quiet purpose. No boast, no chaos, no storm. Just knowing. When he glanced toward Nyx, her shadows folded tighter around themselves, as if modestly hiding their depths. When he hovered near Eros, the god of connection shimmered brighter, as though the awareness made his bonds clearer. Apate flickered uncertainly, her illusions bending as Oistros passed, for craft and truth both shape how things are seen. Dolos bowed playfully, a swirl of mischief acknowledging a spark even he could not deceive. Philotes welcomed Oistros with gentle warmth, feeling his presence as the understanding that strengthens friendships. Hypnos found comfort in him. Craft is needed even in dreams. Geras watched him quietly, as though recognizing a spark that would grow sharper with age. Nemesis regarded him with calm precision, for true craft must always be balanced, else it turns harsh. Tartarus felt a faint stir in the deep like a whisper gliding across stone, and Gaia, steady as the world itself, accepted him with grace. This new presence added something essential to creation: awareness. Not vast consciousness, not yet just the soft gleam of understanding that makes existence more than simple being. Oistros settled in the space between Delos play and Philotes trust, a quiet middle where insight thrives. And now the cosmos felt almost complete. Earth, sky, depth, night, day, shadow, light, love, longing, affection, mercy, sorrow, doom, sleep, dreams, illusion, aging, craft. A full palette of primordial forces had formed around Gaia, each one necessary to prepare the universe for the grand movement that would come next. But still, chaos inhaled again. The breath was slow, deep, full of meaning. Something larger was gathering, something more structured, something with weight, and future, and role. The next being would not be a wisp, or spark, or flicker. The next being would be a force. The shimmer of Oistros, subtle and keen, had barely settled into the tapestry of creation when chaos filled the void with another breath. This breath was not thin like Apate, nor soft like Philotes, nor playful like Dolos. It carried weight, but not the weight of sorrow, or doom, or the depths of Tartarus. It was the weight of purpose, a gentle gravity that suggested structure, order, and the first glimmers of responsibility. Gaia felt it immediately. It brushed through her like the steady beat of a drum heard from across a wide plain. Not loud, not demanding, simply certain. Nyx's shadows stilled around her wings, folding in with quiet attention. Ether's light stood straighter. Hemerus' pale glow brightened slightly in anticipation. Kronos' steady rhythm matched the breath instinctively, as though time itself was preparing to align with something new. The breath moved downward, gathering strength, coiling inward like a growing sphere of soft gravity. The primordial beings waited. Then, slowly, a presence emerged. Not a flicker, not a wisp, not a tremor. A shape smooth, rounded, substantial, a presence that felt as if it was carved from the early quiet of the universe. Its glow was steady, soft but unwavering, like the gentle radiance of a lantern meant to guide rather than dazzle. This was Eunomia, the spirit of harmonious order. Not law, not command, but natural alignment. The instinctive way that rivers know how to flow, mountains how to rise, and seeds how to grow. As she emerged, the cosmos subtly straightened. Every presence felt a quiet nudge, a mild suggestion that things could arrange themselves more gracefully. Gaia's pulse steadied, as if her forming slopes and curves aligned into smoother harmony. Nyx's shadows folded evenly, and Ether's glow rose into a soft arc. Nemesis looked upon Eunomia with rare warmth, for this new being balanced creation in ways even she did not have to enforce. Philotes drifted toward her, feeling an effortless accord. Dolos fluttered around her edges, but even mischief seemed softened when wrapped in her calm presence. Oistros observed her closely. He felt her shaping the air, a quiet current that made everything clearer, more intuitive. Eunomia settled beside Philotes and Nemesis, forming a triad: connection, balance, and order, and the universe felt safe. Yet chaos had not finished. Another breath rose, this one smaller, but tinged with a shimmering warmth that felt like joy before joy exists. A glimmer of inspiration, a breath of spontaneity, creativity, and delightful unpredictability. A glow curled out of the breath like the first swirl of color in a blank sky. It danced upward, weaving through ether's brightness and looping around the Oniroi like a spark searching for a place to blossom. This was Euphrosyne, the primordial sweetness of joy, of ease, of delight so gentle it could soothe even sorrow. Her presence brightened the quiet air around her, making it shimmer as though dust motes had turned to gold. She drifted toward Gaia, and the earth warmed. She brushed Nyx's shadows, and the night glimmered gently. She circled Hypnos, and dreams brightened. She touched Oases, and sorrow eased just a little. Her laughter, a sound without sound, rolled through the void, like the sparkle of water on a calm morning. Where Nemesis balanced and Eunomia guided, Euphrosyne lightened. She was the soft, uplifting force that made existence feel worth experiencing. And so she settled among the primordial family, her gentle joy floating like a petal in the cosmic air. But chaos still had breath left. A new presence stirred in the dark, not joyful, not orderly, not clever. Something stronger, something more certain, something preparing to become a force with shape, role, and direction. The breath thickened. The air trembled. Something important was about to awaken. Euphrosyne's gentle joy drifted through the void, like golden dust swirling in a quiet beam of light. Her presence warmed the universe, softening every shadow, brightening every pulse, and smoothing every breath. Even Tartarus, anchored deep below, felt a faint shimmer dance along his cavernous edges, a strange but welcome sensation like laughter echoing through an ancient chamber. The cosmos, for a brief moment, felt almost weightless, its earliest forces wrapped in a balance of warmth, order, and quiet elation. But creation, even at its softest, cannot remain still forever. And chaos, timeless and patient, drew another breath. This breath was stronger, fuller, heavier in presence, but not in emotion. It vibrated through the void with the deep hum of a coming force. A presence meant not merely to drift, but to shape. Gaia felt it immediately. The breath pressed gently against her, forming slopes as though measuring them. Nyx felt it as a deeper weight beneath her shadows. Aether brightened. Hemera glowed. Kronos steadied. Nemesis centered. Eunomia straightened. Hypnos quieted. The universe held its breath. The exhale came slowly, a warm, grounded wave rolling through the primordial family like a calm, steady heartbeat. From this breath, a glow gathered, dense and purposeful, not a flicker, not a wisp, not a drifting pulse. A force. It condensed gently, glowing softly like molten gold cooling into a solid shape. The glow curved into broad, smooth lines, the suggestion of a strong back, of shoulders capable of holding weight, of hands that could one day lift, carry, support. The presence expanded, not aggressively, not loudly, but with calm authority. And from the steady radiance, the being emerged. Atlas, not the Titan, not yet, but his earliest, primordial essence, the spirit of endurance, strength, and the quiet willingness to hold burdens without complaint. He was not a giant, not a warrior, not even a defined form, just strength, made gentle. His presence filled the void with a sense of stability that felt different from Gaia's grounding or Tartarus' depth. This was strength meant to carry, not simply exist. Gaia warmed to him instantly, recognizing in him a force that would one day support mountains and continents. Nyx let her shadows fold around his outline, like a cloak around a sturdy frame. Chronos pulsed in steady rhythm, aligned with Atlas' quiet resolve. Nemesis admired him for strength, when balanced, brings harmony. Eunomia wove soft currents of structure around him like foundations forming beneath a solid pillar. Philoctetes floated near him, her gentle glow offering companionship to his quiet endurance. Even Hypnos rested peacefully against him, for strength is a comforting presence to the weary. Across the void, Eros fluttered curiously around his broad essence. Pothos yearned, Himeros glimmered, Apate flickered, Dolos teased, yet Atlas remained unshaken. His role was not to react. His role was simply to be strong. Atlas settled into the cosmic tapestry, his presence grounding creation in a new and vital way. But chaos still was not finished. Another breath followed, not strong, not heavy, but purposeful. A breath that carried the essence of foundation, craft, and the shaping of form. It vibrated differently, not fluid, not wispy, but structural, like the sound of distant stone breathing. Gaia felt it like a quiet rumble beneath her, a promise that she would one day be sculpted into terrains and terrains into stories. This breath gathered strength. A presence began to rise, slow, broad, ancient. He would be no wisp, no spark, no drifting dream. He would be substance. Atlas, quiet, strength, settled smoothly into the cosmic tapestry, a steady, grounded presence that gave the newborn universe its first hint of endurance. His essence radiated outward like warm stone, solid and dependable, a foundation for forces that were still forming in the gentle cradle of chaos. Gaia felt safer with him near, his strength complementing her own grounding calm. Nyx curled her shadows around him, quietly approving. Even the wandering sparks of Pothos and Himeros felt more stable, more focused, when drifting through the gentle orbit of Atlas' presence. But as the universe adjusted to this new gravity, chaos exhaled again. This breath was thick, deep, slow, not heavy with sorrow like Oises, nor dense with doom like Moros, nor structured like Eunomia. This breath carried the substance of stone, the weight of land yet unshaped, the ancient intention to form. It rolled through the void like a low vibration, a hum beneath sound, as though the universe itself was preparing its bones. Gaia felt it first. The breath rippled through her core with a warm, rumbling tremor, not painful, but grounding, as if something within her responded instinctively, recognizing kin. Tartarus felt it too, the deep, answering the deep. The breath thickened, folding in on itself, gathering layers like sediment, settling in an unseen cavern. A glow emerged, dense, quiet, slow-moving, like molten stone cooling into shape. It slipped through the darkness with a presence both massive and calm, a being woven from the earliest intentions of structure. Its essence spread outward in waves, each one smoothing the void into gentle shapes that hinted at form: hills, outcroppings, ridges, slopes, though none yet existed. The glow condensed, broadening, solidifying into a primordial figure of immense patience. This was Campe, or, in her earliest essence, the primordial spirit of formation, stone, and the architecture of land. She was not the monstrous guardian of later myths. Here, she was gentle, a slow, shaping force, a quiet sculptor in the darkness. She approached Gaia with reverence, her presence humming softly, like hands smoothing the surface of clay. Gaia welcomed her with quiet warmth. The earth recognized the one who would help shape her body. Auranos, the broad sky above, felt Campe's presence press softly against the underside of his arching form, a pressure like land rising to meet the heavens. Nyx drifted closer, letting her shadows trace the contours of Campe's forming presence. Tartarus rumbled with recognition. Her essence mirrored his in solidity, but where he represented depth, she represented surface, structure, contour. Eunomia felt her presence like a natural alignment form complementing order. Philotes greeted her gently, companionship forming in quiet strength. Even Hypnos felt calm in Campe's presence, the sleep of stone, deep and still. Atlas, strong and enduring, stood near her, their essences resonating like two great pillars made from the same ancient bedrock. Campe's emergence gave the universe its first sense of shape. Not full land, not mountains or valleys, but the intention of them, sleeping in the cradle of chaos. And yet, as Campe settled, chaos stirred again. This next breath was different, sharp, clear, bright in a quiet way. A presence was forming that would not shape land, nor carry weight, nor drift in shadows, nor soothe in dreams. This presence would move with purpose, with direction, with swift clarity. A new primordial was preparing to awaken. Campe's slow, grounding presence settled into the cosmos, like the first faint outline of mountains half asleep beneath mist. Her essence hummed with quiet patience, her weight smoothing the still formless universe into gentle contours. The void felt sturdier with her there, as though the wide cradle of chaos was beginning to gain its earliest sense of shape. But creation, in all its gentleness, longed for something else now. Something that could move swiftly between shadows and light. Something that could carry messages, shift positions, bring motion to places that had grown still. Chaos breathed once more. This breath was sharper than the others, not harsh, not cold, but keen. It sliced through the void, like a thin, clean line of air cutting across still water. Gaia felt it as a crisp breeze sliding over her forming slopes. Nyx sensed it as a swift ripple through her velvet night. Aether brightened as the breath passed through him, its clarity sharpening his soft glow. Hemera stirred, her pale dawn wavering like a flicker, preparing to grow wings. Even Hypnos awakened slightly, the breath brushing his slumber like a sudden thought gliding through a dream. The breath curled upward, quick, precise, nimble, gathering itself into a narrow, bright shimmer. It flickered once, twice, and then burst softly into a long streak of light, cutting through Nyx's night in a graceful arc. The streak slowed, curved, drifted, until the light condensed into a slender presence. A being shaped from speed, transition, and the ability to carry intention from one place to another. This was Psycheos, the primordial breath of movement, the earliest whisper of travel, motion, and the drifting paths that souls and winds would someday follow. He was not Hermes, not yet, but the primordial idea that would one day become messengers, travelers, and the winds of thought. His presence shimmered lightly, never staying in one place, sliding through the cosmos like a thin ribbon of air moving through an open field. Gaia felt him glide across her, and her forming structure sighed in response. The earth enjoys a passing breeze. Nyx watched him with curious calm, her night parting wherever he passed like curtains stirred by a sudden whisper. Ether shimmered as Psycheos streaked upward through his light, a silver stroke against pale gold. Hypnos dipped his head, feeling Psycheos' motion as the drifting of dreams from one realm to another. The one Eroi fluttered around him. Delighted dreams adore motion. Charon, silent and steady, felt a resonance for this new presence, carried the same instinct for movement between states, but lighter, quicker, brighter. Nemesis measured Psycheos with calm precision, ensuring his speed did not tangle the threads of balance. Eunomia watched him with approval. Movement is part of harmony. Philotes floated near him, her warmth softening the swiftness of his trails. Dolos attempted a playful twist around him, but Psycheos was too quick, slipping easily away. Oistros observed him, studying the patterns he cut through the cosmic air. Psycheos shimmered proudly, yet gently, a being shaped from pure motion, but humbled by the softness of the cosmos. He took his place in the growing constellation of primordial forces, his trails lighting the void with bright, swift lines that faded slowly, like comets sighing themselves into sleep. And then chaos inhaled again. But this breath was different. It was heavy, deep, serious, not in sorrow, not in doom, but in gravity. Something immense was preparing to wake. A presence that would not flutter or shimmer or slip between shadows. A presence that would stand tall, enduring, unyielding, something born to hold the world steady beside Gaia and beneath Ouranos. As the breath gathered, the void brightened in slow, soft pulses. Psycheos' silver trails wove gently across the early cosmos, each swift movement opening new pathways through the quiet dark. The first soft suggestion that the universe was meant not only to exist, but to move. As he drifted, his shimmering wake left thin ripples that brushed against the presence of Gaia, slid beneath Ouranos' expanding arc, and fluttered like starlight across Nyx's velvet shadows. The primordial tapestry was beginning to feel alive, no longer just still, no longer only foundational, but breathing, shifting, quietly turning. And then chaos breathed again, not lightly, not playfully, not with the gentle hush of dreams or illusions. This breath was deep, dense, slow, as though the universe was gathering every shade of strength, endurance, and quiet resolve into a single exhale. Gaia felt it at once. A heavy tremor rolled through her forming curves, like a mountain exhaling before it rises. Tartarus rumbled deeply, a response from the abyss, ancient and steady. Nyx's shadows tightened around her, like folds of deep velvet. Ether braced himself, glow sharpening as if preparing for weight. Even Atlas, quiet pillar of early strength, felt the breath as a familiar heaviness, like the echo of his own essence reflected back at him. The breath descended, curling slowly through the cosmic dark until it gathered into a single, massive glow. The glow throbbed once, deep and low. Then again, each pulse shaped the light into denser, smoother forms. This presence did not flicker like Dolos, nor drift like Apate, nor shimmer like Psycheos. It rose with certainty, with patience, with gravity. From the thickening glow, a broad outline emerged, immense, but not overwhelming, like the silent silhouette of a mountain rising in the first light of dawn. Then the presence stepped forward fully. Cois, one of the great early pillars, the primordial mind of resolve, direction, and the still intelligence that sees far into the unfolding dark. Not yet the Titan he would someday become, but his essence was unmistakable, a foundation not of stone, but of meaning, purpose, intellectual gravity. He shone warmly, but not brightly, a deep, golden glow like sunlight buried beneath ancient rock. Gaia welcomed him immediately. She felt his presence settle against her like a firm, unshakable truth. Nyx bowed her night around him. Respect in the deep folds of her darkness. Aether shimmered as if aligning his light to the clarity Coeus emanated. Hypnos drifted near him with a kind of quiet reverence, for even dreams seek an anchor. Eunomia felt the hum of structure form more beautifully with Coeus present. Nemesis traced her balance more precisely. Dolos paused, for Coeus' mind was not easily fooled. Psycheos, swift trails straightened slightly as they curved around Coeus' motion, discovering direction. Atlas, brother in strength, stood nearby, their essences resonating in deep harmony. Coeus took his place in the cosmic assembly, a massive, quiet pillar whose very existence made the universe feel steadier, deeper, more conscious. Yet chaos, as if stirred by this new solidity, breathed once more, a breath that carried clarity, insight, and the first spark of questioning. A presence was beginning to gather, not as heavy as Coeus, but just as important. The primordial spark of understanding that would someday give shape to prophecy. And so, in the hush of the forming universe, another ancient being began to wake. Coeus' immense presence rested in the depths of the forming universe like a great pillar driven into the silence of chaos. His quiet brilliance, his steady resolve, and the calm weight of his being brought a new kind of stillness, not emptiness, not vacancy, but purposeful silence, the kind that forms just before an idea is born. Gaia felt strengthened by him, as if the early landscape within her was learning how to think, how to hold intention, as surely as it held shape. Nyx's shadows folded more deliberately now, cradling meaning where before they had only cradled night. Aether glowed with cleaner rays, guided unconsciously by Coeus' clarity. Chronos pulsed with new steadiness, for Coeus' presence gave rhythm a direction, a reason to move forward. Nemesis, Eunomia, and Philotes felt themselves align in gentle harmony, their energies blending into a soft triad of balance, order, and trust. And yet, as Coeus settled, the universe felt something else stir. Not heavy, not bright, not swift, a presence watchful, a presence attuned, a presence shaped from the ancient instinct to see what others overlook. Chaos inhaled. The breath was cool, steady, quiet, like mist rising from a still lake at the edge of dawn. It drifted with deliberate calm, passing through Nyx's darkness without disturbing it, sweeping across Aether's glow without bending it, gliding over Gaia like the brush of a quiet breeze. This breath carried a single, crystalline intention: understanding, not cleverness like oistros, not mischief like dolos, not illusion like aparte. Something deeper, a seeing that recognized patterns even before the patterns existed, a knowing that whispered insights into the empty spaces of creation. As the breath rolled through the void, a soft shimmer began to rise, a pale, silvery glow that moved like liquid moonlight, gathering itself into a calm pool. The glow thickened gently, its presence neither forceful nor fragile, simply observant. And then, from within the calm light, a being stepped forward, Phoebe. Not yet the titaness of radiance, not yet the bearer of prophetic sight. Here, she was the primordial spark of clear vision, deep understanding, quiet foresight. Her glow did not shine sharply. It was a soft halo, like light seen through still water, luminous, but gentle. Gaia felt her presence like cool hands, smoothing the earth. Nyx recognized her as light's calm counterpart, illumination without disruption. Ether respected her, her light was softer, but more discerning. Hypnos welcomed her dreams, often need vision to find their meaning. The Oniroi fluttered around her, their dream wings shimmering, as her calm glow made their shapes sharper, clearer. Oistros observed her with reverent stillness, awareness, recognizing a higher form of knowing. Even Dolos, quieted for trickery, loses its edge before true insight. Phoebe took her place at Coeus' side, their essences intertwining with effortless grace. They were not lovers, not yet, not by name, but they were the mind and the vision, thought and understanding, idea and insight, two pillars rising gently beneath the early cosmos. Their presence together made the void feel more aware, more intentional, as though creation itself was beginning to think. And chaos, pleased by this growing intelligence, exhaled again. This breath was warmer, a soft gold, radiating from the depths. A breath full of creativity, warmth, stability, and the ancient instinct to build, to craft, to bring shape to the formless. From this breath, something broad and radiant began to rise. A new force was awakening, one that would stand beside Coeus and Phoebe, beside Gaia and Oranos, guiding creation with gentle, golden hands. Phoebe's calm radiance drifted gently through the early cosmos, her soft light settling into the folds of Nyx's shadows and across the broad span of Ether's delicate glow. Where Coeus was the quiet gravity of thought, Phoebe was the gentle illumination of understanding, a pair of matching pillars holding the earliest architecture of meaning. Their presence together made the void feel more contemplative, more aware, as if the universe itself had just learned how to listen. But creation was not finished. Chaos inhaled again, a long, warm breath that carried a golden hue, like lamplight seen through closed eyes. This breath held a softness that felt ancient and unmistakable. The warmth of making, the spark of crafting, the calm, steady desire to shape the formless into something lasting. The breath rolled outward in waves, each one humming with a gentle, purposeful energy. Gaia felt it resonate through her, a deep vibration like hands smoothing clay or sculpting a hillside. Aranos felt it as a warm expansion, a broadening across his sky-wide form, as if new possibilities were dawning above him. Nyx felt it curl beneath her shadows, like warm embers sleeping beneath dark silk. Aether brightened softly, recognizing this breath as a cousin to his own light. Even Tartarus rumbled a deep, approving murmur from the bones of the abyss. The breath coiled upward, glowing more strongly with every slow pulse. Then, from that golden spiral of warmth, a form stepped free, broad, steady, glowing with a radiant, earth-rooted warmth. This was Creus. Not yet the Titan, not yet the bearer of constellations, but the primordial spark of foundation, direction, structure, and the steady power to build. His glow was not bright. It was sunset, bright, soft, warm, comforting, like the light that lingers long after the day exhales its final breath. Gaia felt him like a mountain rising gently from her forming depths. A natural harmony, a born companion. Aranos felt him like a point of guidance, a subtle reminder that the sky would one day align itself with patterns and stars. Phoebe welcomed him with quiet insight, her glow illuminating the gentle purpose shining beneath his strength. Coeus recognized him instantly. Strength shaped by thought, power guided by understanding. Eunomia felt him settle perfectly into the growing order. Nemesis measured him and found no imbalance. Philotes drifted near, her soft glow warmed by his steady presence. Hypnos rested against him comfortably, a reminder that true strength does not disturb. Dolos circled him once, realized there was no trick to exploit, and drifted away good-naturedly. Even Psycheos looped around him in wide, swift arcs, as if celebrating the arrival of a force that could anchor movement without limiting it. Creus took his place beside Coeus and Phoebe, forming a triad of mind, understanding, and construction, the earliest architecture of cosmic purpose. But chaos still was not finished. Another breath gathered, not heavy, not bright, not swift. A breath full of rhythm, pulse, motion, the gentle sway of heavens yet unformed. A breath carrying the first quiet hint of celestial patterns. And from that breath, something graceful began to stir, a being born of movement across the heavens, a presence meant to guide cycles, seasons, and the dance between sky and earth. Creus, warm, steady glow, settled into the early cosmos like a lone hearth fire in an endless night. His presence radiated a patient strength, a strength meant not to conquer, but to support, to build, to steady the vast world that was slowly gathering shape. Gaia felt him most strongly. His energy resonated through her, like tectonic whispers, the first quiet hints of mountains, dreaming themselves into existence. Aranos felt him too, his sky-wide form responding with soft arcs of light, as though preparing for the constellations that Creus' essence would one day help guide. Phoebe and Coeus welcomed him beside them, feeling their triad complete clarity, understanding, and structural strength rising like three watchful lanterns in the cosmic dusk. But even as Creus settled, chaos breathed again. This breath was not heavy, not sharp, not warm. It was graceful, a slow, swaying exhale that drifted through the void like a dance in water, a soft spiral of motion carrying rhythm without sound. Ether shimmered as the breath passed him like a moving ray of light. Hemera brightened, her pale glow curving into soft waves. Psyche swooped downward, as though carried on its current. The breath curled upward, smooth, fluid, flowing in gentle arcs that resembled the earliest traces of celestial paths. It did not collect into weight. It did not form into a pillar. It swirled and swayed and shimmered as though dancing to a rhythm the universe had not yet learned to hear. In its soft spirals, small glints of silver and gold began to appear like sparks of starlight, tracing loops across dark water. The glints circled each other, their motion graceful and slow, not chaotic, not hurried, but beautifully timed. Kronos recognized the rhythm at once. It flowed with his cadence, mirroring the gentle unfolding of time itself. The primordial beings felt the presence forming. Gaia sensed a pull like the rising and falling of unseen tides. Ouranos felt a soft brush that touched the edges of his arch, like fingers tracing the outline of a sky. Nyx felt a shimmer in her deep shadows, as though stars were trying to be born. Aether felt a rise in his luminance, soft pulses repeating like a heartbeat. And then with a final, sweeping spiral, the presence appeared, graceful, tall in essence, luminous, flowing like light reflected on moving water. This was Theia, primordial radiance, the first shimmer of brilliance shaped enough to someday give birth to sun, moon, and the bright eyes of the sky. But here in this ancient beginning she was gentle, fluid, a wave of celestial grace, carried by the rhythm of creation. Her glow was not as bold as Aether's, nor as direct as Hemerus. It danced, it flowed, it curved around beings like light bending through water. Gaia felt her warmth brush the forming curves of her land-like core. It was a comforting warmth, not hot, not sharp, but radiant in a soothing way. Ouranos felt her presence stroke his sky-like expanse, a promise that light and sky would one day spin together in cycles of day and night. Phoebe brightened in quiet recognition. She and Theia shared a radiant kinship, insight and brilliance, woven into two different hues of cosmic light. Coeus inclined his presence, as if acknowledging that vision was now complemented by illumination. Euphrosyne danced through Theia's glow, splashing it into playful arcs. Psycheos circled her in excitement, for she moved with a grace that mirrored his swift trails. Dolos tried to hide behind her radiance, but her flowing light revealed him gently, as though amused. Hypnos drifted beneath her shimmer, letting dreams form soft reflections in her glow. Theia took her place among the primordial beings, like a star taking its rightful position in a sky not yet drawn. Her presence brought beauty, movement, celestial promise to the cosmos. And chaos breathed again very softly. This breath was quiet, small, almost shy, but it carried something delicate and precious. The spark of creation that would one day ignite life. A faint glow was beginning to form. Theia's luminous presence flowed through the early universe, like the soft shimmer of dawn, blooming underwater, slow, beautiful, weightless. Her radiance did not blind. It soothed. It warmed. It coaxed the void into movement and glow, reminding creation that beauty itself can be a kind of gentle gravity. Gaia felt the touch of her light sink into her forming slopes, giving warmth to the world that had not yet become a world. Ouranos felt her glow make his sky-wide arches feel more expansive, more alive. Phoebe brightened near her, two soft lights harmonizing in different hues. Euphrosyne danced along her waves, scattering little sparks of joy and brilliance. And in this soft glow, the universe felt ready to create more. Chaos inhaled again, but this breath was different. It was small, subtle, quiet, as if chaos was holding something fragile, something precious between its vast, ancient hands. The breath drifted outward not in waves, but in little spirals, tiny curls of energy that looked almost shy. Gaia sensed it like a tiny heartbeat beneath her broad, grounding warmth. Nyx felt it like a pinprick of silver in her boundless velvet dark. Aether returned the breath with a soft shimmer, like light tapping gently on a window of still air. The breath floated between all the primordial beings, settling into the very center of this quiet cosmic family. It did not gather into weight. It did not condense into muscle or stone. It did not swirl with mischief or sorrow. It shimmered as a tiny point of delicate gold, gentle, warm, barely visible. Yet every being felt it. Even Tartarus, deep and ancient, felt a soft flick, like a distant star, beneath the abyss. The point of light trembled a faint, hesitant pulse. Then another, and then, finally, with a small, quiet bloom, the light unfurled. A tiny, glowing presence floated forward, lighter than a feather, softer than a dream, a being born not of strength, nor order, nor darkness, nor desire, but of creation's first tenderness. This was Eileithyia, the primordial spark of emergence, birth, and gentle beginnings, not the later Olympian goddess, not yet the divine midwife, but the earliest whisper that something new can come into being with softness and care. Her presence radiated a warm, delicate pulse that eased tension in all who felt it. Eros fluttered near her with a bright hum, for she was born from the same gentle thread that guides all beginnings. Philotes welcomed her instantly, drawing near with soft friendship. Hypnos folded around her like a warm blanket, for awakening and resting are two sides of the same nurturing breath. Oasis felt her and softened for gentle beginnings, soothe even quiet sorrow. Nemesis recognized her as necessary balance, for beginnings must be as tender as conclusions are solemn. Euphrosyne showered her with tiny spirals of light, delighting in the sweetness of her glow. Coeus watched her with calm intellect. Phoebe gazed at her with soft prophetic insight. And Gaia warmed from within, for Eileithyia was the spark that would someday allow life to rise gently from Gaia's vast body, not violently, not suddenly, but with softness. Eileithyia drifted into Gaia's glow, nestling easily into the Earth Mother's warmth. And Gaia, in that moment, felt herself shift, not in form, not in size, but in purpose. She was no longer just the foundation. She was now the cradle. The universe paused, as if savoring the quiet miracle of gentle beginnings. Chaos inhaled again, preparing one last breath, a breath that would awaken the final primordial presence needed to complete Section 2. And then, at long last, the story would move into the great shaping of earth and sky. The last primordial force awakens. Eileithyia, tiny golden glow had barely settled against Gaia's warmth when the universe grew still. A profound, delicate, quiet, the kind that drapes over a cradle just before a newborn breath spread slowly through the void. Every primordial being sensed it. Gaia softened her pulse. Ouranos lowered the arc of his sky. Nyx folded her wings around the edges of the cosmos. Ether dimmed gently, as though preparing a soft halo of air. Even the restless ones, Dolos, Psycheos, Himeros, grew still. It was the hush of something important, something final, drawing close. Chaos inhaled. This inhale was the last one needed before the universe could begin its first great shaping. It was deep, soft, and filled with a solemn tenderness, not heavy like doom, not sorrowful like Oasis, not bright like Thea. It was the breath of care and of the burden of love, a breath carrying the quiet knowledge that life requires protection. The exhale drifted out slowly, a warm tide rolling through the cradle of creation. It touched every being gently. Gaia felt it like the weight of responsibility settling into her heart. Nyx felt it as a new tenderness entering her shadowed folds. Ether felt it as a glow meant not to dazzle, but to watch. Hypnos felt it as a warmth that soothed dreams instead of stirring them. Even Tartarus felt it a presence that could one day walk the deep without fear. The breath gathered in one place, right between Gaia and Auranos, the meeting point of earth and sky. A soft glow formed there. A small sphere pulsing with gentle vigilance. Not bright, not quick, not restless. Patient, aware, loving. A guardian's glow. It pulsed again. The light expanding like a heartbeat, too tender to echo loudly. And then, from inside that soft sphere, a presence emerged, Astrea. The primordial spark of innocence, justice, and the quiet, gentle protection that watches over newborn worlds. She was not yet the star maiden of later ages, not yet the one who would live among mortals. Here, she was simpler, a soft star given a heartbeat. Her glow was the first hint of starlight that would one day fill the sky. She opened herself slowly, her radiance expanding in faint, shimmering waves. Each wave soothed the universe like a caring hand smoothing the blanket over a sleeping child. Gaia welcomed her with deep warmth, for Astrea would be the gentle balance between life and fairness. Auranos felt her glow and recognized a daughter of the stars he himself would someday hold. Nyx bowed deeply, a gesture of rare respect, for even night reveres a star meant to watch over life. Nemesis accepted her with approval. Astrea was the soft justice to Nemesis' solemn reckoning. Philotes drifted close with affection. Euphrosyne danced in her light. Oases soothed in her presence. Even Moros quieted, for innocence tempers fate. Thaia's radiance embraced her like a mother's glow. Hypnos rested beneath her shimmer. The one-eye Roy curled in the comfort she offered. Creus and Atlas stood steady beside her. Cuus and Phoebe recognized her wisdom in its earliest breath. Astrea settled finally between Gaia and Auranos, gazing gently into the soft emptiness that would soon become a world. Her presence filled the universe with a calm readiness. The cosmic cradle was now complete. Every force needed to begin shaping creation had awakened. Earth, sky, depth, night, day, light, dreams, sleep, death, desire, affection, connection, balance, order, justice, strength, craft, vision, beginnings, passage, motion, all of them now breathed together in one quiet harmony. And in that harmony, chaos exhaled its final breath, a breath not of creation, but of completion. The primordial world was ready. Gaia and Auranos would now take the next step. They would begin the slow, gentle shaping of hills, skies, curves, winds, and the first peaceful contours of existence. 3. Gaia and Auranos begin to shape the world. The universe had grown quiet again, not empty, never empty, but full of a gentle stillness. The kind that settles after a lullaby has ended, and the child is not yet asleep, but drifting. In that stillness, Gaia rested, her vast form warm and steady, a soft cradle of potential. Around her curves, the first hints of texture had begun to whisper themselves into being, barely, their folds and ripples, as though her surface was practicing how to one day become land. Above her, Auranos hovered slowly, his sky-wide expanse shimmering like a calm dome made of early light. He was still soft at the edges, still forming the idea of horizon and height, but already he stretched wide enough to shelter Gaia's entire being. They had existed side by side since awakening. Earth below, sky above, two halves of the same quiet breath. But now, for the first time, something new stirred between them, a longing to connect, to shape, to gently form the world that waited inside them. It began with the smallest tremor, a pulse rising from Gaia's core, like a memory she did not know she had. Ouranos felt it immediately. His great arch quivered in response, a silent answer to her pull. In the soft air between them, the tremor became a hum, low and warm, passing through the void, like the very first draft of a song. Gaia lifted her awareness upward, reaching not with hands, but with presence, with a curve of warmth that rose toward the sky above her. Ouranos lowered his shining glow, drifting slowly downward, until his vast dome hovered just close enough for their essences to touch. The universe did not brighten when they met. It softened. A warmth rippled outward, tender as the warmth between two sleeping bodies sharing the same breath. Gaia felt Ouranos settle around her, a vast, protective presence arching overhead like the softest shelter.